and could have celebrated 2 others had they not squandered big leads. And that leaves Perkins searching for new answers. Bud Grant's Minnesota Vikings were one of the dominant teams of the 1970s. Built on a ferocious defense and the nimble feet and arm of Fran Tarkenton, the Vikes went to 4 Super Bowls. Jerry Burns' current squad harkens back to those glory days. A tenacious defense. You'll notice that both the Vikings and the Buccaneers are tied for second place, making today's game a critical one as they're both in the hunt for a wild card playoff spot. And hello, everyone. I'm James Brown, working alongside with former Chicago Bears offensive lineman Dan Jiggets. And Danny, the records we just saw are really deceptive. The Minnesota Viking regulars are 4-1, and Tampa Bay's regulars are 2-3. And I got to believe the difference in those records has Coach Ray Perkins of Tampa Bay just a little concerned.
Well, Ray's got to be concerned. Last week, they're up 28-3 over St. Louis. In the fourth quarter, blow the lead. That's something they've done over the past 3 weeks. He's got to be concerned about whether or not they can get that thought out of their minds and be able to win today.
Well, Minnesota certainly has had its share of distractions as well this week.
Well, Minnesota's one of the elite teams in the NFL, but they've got a quarterback controversy brewing here. Tommy Kramer's been injured. Was a starter last year in the Pro Bowl. He doesn't have the hot hand this year, though. Coach Jerry Burns says he can't afford the luxury of letting Tommy play himself back into shape after the pinched nerve. He's got to go with the hot hand. That belongs to Wade Wilson, and he'll start for the Vikings today.
And receiving in today's game will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Back deep will be Bobby Futrell. Kicking for Minnesota will be Chuck Nelson. Today's game originally scheduled to be played in Tampa, but due to the World Series, it's being played here in Minnesota. And there's a kickoff for doubleheader Sunday here on CBS. Back deep, receiving the ball, Freeman. And it's brought up to around the 25-yard line. Steve DeBerg will be the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. To take a look, second-rated quarterback in the NFC. And the defense that he'll be facing of the Minnesota Vikings, a tough one indeed. To take a look at Martin, Thomas, Keith Millard, and Chris Dolman, NFC Player of the Week last year defensively. Last week, that is.
Chris Dolman, and formerly an outside linebacker, strong upfield rusher.
And the linebackers, Martin, Studwell, and Jesse Solomon. And a secondary that was thought to be their Achilles heel. First and 10, ball on the 24 for the Buccaneers. DeBerg back to pass. Across the middle, he finds Smith out of the backfield, and Smith with a good pickup near midfield as he's stopped by Wyman Henderson. He did fumble, but the ball came loose after he was down near midfield. And the offense of the Buccaneers. Again, James Wilder not running as much as in years past.
Yeah, but they've got Phil Freeman back after the hamstring injury.
The offensive line, J.D. Marlavelle starting in place of the injured Rob Taylor.
Randy Grimes has been playing exceptionally well for him at center.
First and 10, ball marked on the 48 of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In motion, Gerald Carter. And the handoff goes to Smith again, and Smith trying to find some room around the right side of that line. Not much of a pickup.
James, one of the things that you're going to see Tampa Bay try to do early, I'm sure, is establish that running game. They haven't really done that over the last couple of weeks, and it's something that Ray Perkins wants to zero in on this week. Got to play ball control against the Vikings because of that dink passing game that the Vikings have. Will burn up a lot of the clock.
Pickup of only 2 brings up a 2nd and 8. Ball marked on the 50-yard line. In motion, Jeff Smith. DeBerg back to pass. Out of the backfield, James Wilder. And Wilder across the 45, close to the 40-yard line, stopped that time by Chris Martin. James Wilder, as we mentioned before, again, not running the ball as much as in years past, but a much more versatile back.
Well, I think that Ray Perkins sees him very much in the same light that Dallas sees Tony Dorsett. You don't pound him up in there 30 times a game running the ball, and chances are he'll be around for you longer during the season and during a career.
And that was a pickup of 9, bringing up a 3rd and 1. Ball marked on a 43-yard line of the Minnesota Vikings. DeBerg pitches back to Smith. Smith going strong over the top, down near the 35-yard line. John Harris on the stop. And Jeff Smith getting quite a bit of action in the early going. Jeff Smith was picked up in a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs, and in fact was the most productive all-purpose runner with the Chiefs in the 2 seasons that he was there. So certainly a good pickup for the Tampa Bay Bucks. So take a look at Jerry Burns, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. He was glad to get the strike season over with. He remained faithful to his veterans. 1st and 10, ball on the 37-yard line. DeBerg back to pass. Finding over the middle, Wilder. Wilder across the 30. Stopped that time by Chris Martin. So James Wilder showing his versatility coming out of the backfield.
Well, and the other thing that's important to notice here is that's what they want to do with him, because then you take less hits in terms of coming up through that line. You're not taking the hits from the defensive line. You know, the backs are hitting you, the defensive backs, the guys that weigh 170 pounds instead of 280. And there you see James doing the things that he does best. Once he catches that ball, he knows how to get upfield and make that extra yardage.
That was a 9-yard pickup by Wilder again. Brings up a 2nd and 1. Ball on a 28. In motion, Jeff Smith. DeBerg back to pass. Complete along the right sideline to Calvin McGee, the big tight end. Stopped by Chris Martin again. Steve DeBerg certainly has had a very hot hand. I mentioned at the top of the show that he's a 2nd-rated quarterback in the NFC, completing 60% of his passes.
Well, I think the passing game that the Buccaneers run helps Steve DeBerg a great deal. It's a rhythm passing game that, you know, either you're going to, and within 2 or 3 steps, you're going to find your receiver and let the ball go.
Strong drive by the Buccaneers. They're inside the 20. They've been very productive this year inside the 20 as DeBerg, with 2 receivers to the left, goes back to pass. Looking for Calvin McGee, and it's incomplete. And the Buccaneers have shown, Dan Jiggis, that they can score on just about anybody in the NFL. The problem has been holding on to those leads.
Inside the 20, they have been extremely successful. And there you see the numbers on it. 19 of 21 possessions. They've gotten some points out of it. That's highly unusual for any football team.
Brings up a 2nd and 10. Ball on the 18. Just underway here in the Metrodome. Bill Freeman in motion. DeBerg back to pass. Looking for Carter. He's got him complete. And Carter is roped down just in front of the goal line that time. Give the credit to Neil Gugamos and Reggie Rutland.
James, they say on a touchdown pass, you've got to break the plane of the end zone. Well, Gerald Carter may not have broken the plane, but he certainly cut a hole in it right here. Watch, right in the middle of your screen. You're going to see him coming across on the slant pattern. Makes a nice reception there and just barely gets caught. I thought he was in the end zone. Got caught probably about 5 inches short of the goal line.
Well, it's 1st and goal. Ball is only inches from the goal line. Tampa Bay on the opening drive of the game, looking very impressive as Steve DeBerg has marched his team downfield. They're inches away from a touchdown.
And this is classic of Tampa Bay. Opening drives, they take it down and put it right in the end zone.
Carter in motion. The handoff to Smith, and he's stopped. Ball comes loose. While Minnesota is pointing, and the Vikings, goal line stands Chris Martin on the stop that time and recovered the fumble as the Bucks are thwarted at the goal line.
Now watch, you're going to see the hit come just before number 35, number 35, Jeff Smith, can get up into the end zone. Joey Browner snuck in on the side, made a key play there, and then goes after the recovery on the fumble. But there you see Howard recovering the ball. Excellent play by Joey Browner.
Chris Martin again on the recovery. As you take a look at Ray Perkins, got to be a little frustrated. Team with an impressive drive. They come away empty-handed. We'll be back in just a moment. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, a 75-yard march by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is stopped inside the 1-yard line. And if you ask Gerald Carter, he would have thought he made it across.
Well, it sure looks like it from this vantage point right here. It looks like Gerald Carter scores. That led to a problem, though. In the next play, they ended up fumbling the ball.
And that gives it to the Vikings, who hand off to Allen Rice, who goes right up the gut. Pick up maybe of a yard. The Tampa Bay defense that Wade Wilson and the Minnesota Vikings will be facing. The defense is ranked 4th in the NFC. John Cannon, Mike Stensrud, and Ron Holmes.
Stensrud, a former Minnesota Viking.
Washington, Davis, Randall, and Winston Moss are the linebackers. And Ray Ison, starting his first NFL game, is replacing Rick Woods in the secondary. Brings up a 2nd and 8. Ball on the 4-yard line of Minnesota. Wade Wilson at quarterback. And the handoff to DJ Dozier. And Dozier spins and goes for maybe a pickup of about 2 yards. And this Minnesota offense is certainly one that many NFL insiders consider to be one of the most talented in the league. You take a look.
With weapons like Nelson Rice, Carter, and Lewis, everybody says they're exceptional.
And their offensive line, there are some names that can fill up the backs of some jerseys. 3rd and 6, an important situation for the Vikings. Ball marked on their own 6-yard line, just underway. First quarter action, 9:33 remaining, no score. In motion, Leo Lewis. The handoff to Darren Nelson. Nelson finds some daylight, and he's got the first down and more as Darren Nelson is run out of bounds by Ray Ison, but not before picking up the first down plus a few.
The unusual thing about this play is that Minnesota's able to run outside effectively on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Most people can't do that, but there you see the block right now in the corner. Number 71 McDonald springs Darren Nelson, and he's off and running. And luckily, Ray Ison, number 28, is back there to make the stop, or Darren might have gone the distance.
A 14-yard pickup by Darren Nelson. He's just 23 yards shy, and make that 9 yards shy now. For 4th place on the club list in all-purpose yardage behind Sammy White. But it's 1st and 10, ball on the 20. The handoff to DJ Dozier. Looking for an opening on the left side, and he did not find it as Ron Holmes, 3rd-year linebacker, will make that the right end for the Bucs. Brings him down.
Ron Holmes is really developing as a defensive end. He's former #1 draft choice. Everybody expects a lot out of him. Right side of your screen, number 90. You just saw him move out of the way there, but you're going to come and see him come back in a big way. There he beats Jeff Zimmerman and makes the stop in the backfield, and he catches a guy that runs a 4.3 40, DJ Dozier.
Well, this is a tough Tampa Bay defense, at least as far as the first 3 quarters are concerned. It's a loss of 1 for the Vikings, bringing up a 2nd and 11. Ball on the 19 of the Vikings. Wilson back to pass. Intended receiver that time was Anthony Carter.
AC was open on the play, but Wade Wilson was getting rushed by Mike Stensrud, number 94, right up the middle of the offense, and he had to unload the ball or take the sack, one of the two.
Stensrud, of course, is the former Minnesota Viking. He knows all about this team.
Yeah, I'm sure he even knows their snap counts.
9-year veteran out of Iowa State. Brings up a 3rd and 11. Ball still on the 19 of the Vikings. No score, first quarter action. 3 receivers in for Minnesota. They call that their green package. Out of the shotgun, Wade Wilson. Complete to Leo Lewis at the 30-yard line. And that looks to be enough for the first down. Leo Lewis, 7th-year player out of Missouri, stopped that time by Bobby Kemp.
Watch Wade Wilson kind of take his time, drop back, get in position. That's one of the things the shotgun allows you to do. Now he's going to look out all his receivers, pick one out. He goes to Leo Lewis, who's wide open. He makes the sliding catch. You know, I was talking with Doug Graber, the defensive secondary coach for the Buccaneers earlier, and he's telling me how bad he hates Leo Lewis because he always makes his defense look bad.
Lewis is lightning quick. 1st and 10, ball on the 31 of the Vikings. Wide to the right, Anthony Carter. To the left is Leo Lewis, and Leo Lewis is the intended receiver. Juggled the ball, actually had it in his hands, but couldn't hold on to it. Tight coverage that time by Rod Jones and Ray Isom.
Every once in a while, when you know you're going to get in that squeeze, you're concentrating on the ball that's coming towards you. But then again, you got two defensive backs closing very quickly on you. Now there you're going to get a chance to see him come out of the right side of your screen. Leo knows he's going to get hit in the middle, and he gives up the ball. It was a little bit behind him, though. The ball was thrown a little bit behind him.
I think he heard the footsteps. Wide to the left, Jim Gustafson for the Vikings. To the right, Anthony Carter. 2nd and 10. Ball on the 31 of the Vikings. In motion, Darren Nelson. Wilson back to pass. Looking downfield, going for Carter. And Carter in a crowd. The ball was well placed with great coverage that time by Ray Isom and Ricky Reynolds. Good job by Wilson just to get it there under such tight coverage.
Well, I think what Minnesota is trying to do, when you see that motion going off to the side of the field, they're trying to get AC deep, get one-on-one coverage by the strong safety or the weak safety, one of the two. Weren't able to do it on this time around, and the result is he's double covered and he can't get to the football.
That pass came close to being intercepted that time. Brings up a 3rd and 10 as you take a look at Walker Lee Ashley. 3rd and 10, ball on the 31. Big play for the Vikings as they try to keep this drive alive. Wilson out of the shotgun. In motion, Gustafson. And incomplete across the middle to Hassan Jones. The ball was right there on the letters, but Jones couldn't hold on to it.
Well, it seems like the Minnesota receivers are having a bit of a concentration problem, Jones being the latest victim of it. Coming across that middle, they know that those linebackers for Tampa Bay are very active. Look right in the middle of your screen, you're going to see Jones, number 84, come across, and he just flat out drops the ball. Can't have that kind of thing from your receivers. You've got to catch those kinds of passes.
So Minnesota unable to do anything with this particular drive. Their first possession of the game. Bobby Futrell back. That's Greg Coleman kicking for the Minnesota Vikings. And Coleman gets a good one up. Futrell. And Futrell did not call for the fair catch, but the flag is thrown as Reggie Rutland looked as if he nailed Futrell before he actually caught the ball, and the flag is thrown on the play.
Reggie Rutland made purely a rookie mistake. You have to wait and let that guy get an opportunity to catch the ball, which Reggie didn't do. And Reggie's as upset as anyone, but watch now. Before the ball gets to Bobby Futrell, you're going to see number 48, Reggie Rutland, into the picture, and now the ball comes. It actually hits Rutland on the back. No wonder Bobby Futrell couldn't catch it.
Still no score in the first quarter. We'll be back in just a moment. Minnesota scoreless between the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Vikings. 7:30 remaining in the first quarter. As you take a look at the divisional leaders in the NFC, those three teams sitting in pretty good shape. But we talked about the importance of today's game, and there are a number of teams, Danny, still in the hunt for a wild card playoff spot.
Well, you know, you realize that Minnesota's got to be one of the finer teams in the league, as we said at the top of the show. Take those 4 losses for them. 3 of those came during the replacement season. Their regulars are 3-1. And nobody knows that better than Jerry Burns, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings.
He was too pleased to see his regulars back. Second possession for the Bucks. DeBerg back to pass. And the intended receiver was Phil Freeman. The ball just outside of his reach. And the Buccaneers were very impressive on their opening drive, a 75-yard drive. 67 of those yards came on passes by Steve DeBerg. That'll bring up a 2nd and 10. Ball on the 40.
Excuse me, Steve is very glad to have Phil Freeman back. They feel that Phil Freeman is their go-to guy in tough situations. He's the guy they want to have on the field.
Phil Freeman to the left. In motion, Jeff Smith. DeBerg back to pass. And it's complete to his big tight end, Calvin McGee, at about the 43-yard line. Calvin McGee, third-year player out of Southern University, who again dropped an awful lot of weight preseason, 45 pounds to be exact.
And quite possibly that's the reason for the number of receptions that he's got this year. Second among NFC tight ends. He's been having a great season, improved the blocking a little bit, and this guy's going to be in the Pro Bowl.
The Vikings coaching staff consider him to be a young man with super hands. Brings up a 3rd and 6. Ball on the 44-yard line. 2 receivers to the left. In motion, Freeman. The Bird. Looking for McGee, and McGee, a great effort, incomplete, as Wyman Henderson was smothering him, but a good individual effort by Calvin McGee.
These are the kinds of efforts that get you into the Pro Bowl. Watch Calvin McGee here. The ball is overthrown, but Calvin McGee makes an exceptional effort reaching out, almost one-hands the ball, and just can't get it as he's going down to the turf. A beautiful play by Calvin McGee.
Brings up a punting situation for the Bucs, their first of the day. Frank Garcia punting for the Bucs. Back deep, Leo Lewis for the Vikings. And Garcia gets a good one up, sending Lewis over to the left side. He takes it on the 14. Lewis, still on his feet, knocked out of bounds at about the 28-yard line. Scott Brantley knocked him out of bounds, so the Vikings will take over for their second time. Still no score.
Meet Randall Cunningham and the Eagles, while the surprising Saints take on the 49ers. Coming up next.
By any measuring stick, one would have to say Ray Perkins has done an excellent job in his first year as head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they have had somewhat of a crazy trend. A roller coaster season for them. No team in the history of the NFL has gone through the first 9 weeks alternating wins and losses.
That's tied directly to the youth on this team, though. I remember we had that same problem with the Chicago Bears early on, trying to get those young players together.
They'd like to win today as Wade Wilson goes across the middle, complete to Steve Jordan. Steve Jordan, tight end, 6-year out of Brown University, 6'3", 239, and he's a good one. Talk about a good pair of hands.
Yeah, great receiver that come out of the Ivy League. Of course, they produce a lot of great football players in the Ivy League.
No bias there, huh?
Steve Jordan is a civil engineer up here during the offseason. A very, very brilliant young man.
And his hands helped the Vikings to a pickup of 9 on that play, bringing up 2nd and 1, ball on the 37. 5:50 remaining first quarter, no action. And the handoff. And the Bucs are all over top of Allen Rice as they drive him back.
James, one of the things you can bank on with the Bucs defense is running in the middle is going to be tough because of number 58, Jeff Davis, who stops everything that comes up the middle. Now watch, left side of your screen, Jeff Davis, number 58, coming in. Urban Randall, number 54, just as good at the other linebacking spot. And there you see him making a stop, shutting that whole offensive line down in the middle, and you couldn't squeeze through there with a nickel.
A little bit of help from Chris Washington as well, bringing up a 3rd and 1 still. Ball on the 37. And the handoff to Dozier, and Dozier bulls straight ahead. Good leg strength as he gets across the 40-yard line. First down for the Vikings, and give the credit to the 2nd and 3rd effort of DJ Dozier, rookie out of Penn State.
Well, we've got one of the Vikings down on the field, and we'll try to get a number on that in the report as soon as possible.
Looks like it might be Kirk Loudermilk, a 3rd-year center out of Ohio State.
So he'll be replaced by Dennis Swilley, number 67, who was the veteran center for the Vikings and started for them for about 4 or 5 years here.
And Loudermilk took over this season, as a matter of fact, due to a preseason injury to Dennis Swilley. He had been a backup for 2 years. And it looks like they're working the lower part of his left leg there, trying to make sure the knee is all right. There's Dennis Swilley loosening up on the sidelines. Swilley actually hurt his ankle driving to training camp. He was driving up from Texas, and he had a loose bone in his ankle that locked on him, and he called to the team headquarters and said, I've got to head to the hospital. And he found out that indeed a bone had lodged itself in his ankle. He had to have surgery and was out for a while.
Yeah, I was teasing him. I said he must have been speeding. Had the foot down.
They don't do that in Texas. So Kirk Loudermilk walking gingerly on that left leg of his. He'll receive treatment on the sideline, so certainly Dennis Swilley will be coming back in to man his position.
And Burns, he's got to be saying, what else can happen to me now? I've had a terrible replacement season, and now I've got to scramble to get into the playoffs. Let's see if we can get a peek at that injury from the end zone. Watch right in the middle of your screen. That's the center. Loudermilk, number 63. And there somebody lands right on the back of his leg. Ron Holmes, number 90, lays out right on the back of his leg. And that'll send anybody to the doctor.
It'll be 1st and 10 for the Vikings. Ball on their own 40. DJ Dozier in the slot. Wilson back to pass. Under pressure. And gets it away to Allen Rice. And Rice could pick up for 1st down yardage and more, as Rice is knocked down by Ron Holmes, but not before he gets near the 45-yard line of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Wade Wilson's going to try to run a waggle pass. He heads out to the left side. Nothing there. Sets up real quick. Says, hey, I've got to get out of here. A dimension that Tommy Kramer's not able to do right now. Moving around in the pocket. He gets it to Allen Rice. And Allen does the rest on excellent athletic ability. And a little block there by Leo Lewis, number 87.
And we're getting a glimpse of the many weapons that the Vikings have.
Notice I said a little block by Leo Lewis.
1st and 10. Ball on the 45 of Tampa Bay. Wilson, the handoff to Nelson. And Nelson didn't find a hole up the middle, tried to cut back to the left as he's brought down by Mike Stensrud.
One of the reasons why you like a nose tackle like a Mike Stensrud's big guy, doesn't have that sideline range, but inside the defensive tackles, he's going to give you that kind of coverage. You're not going to get that cutback block against him.
The score is Detroit trying for the 2nd week in a row to pull a major upset. They beat Dallas last week, leading Washington 3-0 today. Brings up a 2nd and 9. Ball on the 44 of the Buccaneers. 3:07 remaining in the 1st quarter. And Holmes, no question about that. He couldn't put the brakes on.
Well, you heard the hard count, though. I'm sure the viewers at home even can hear it. You know, every once in a while you get that little quietness in the game, and that's when that quarterback really wants to concentrate.
Ball start, number 65, 2nd down.
And sometimes you get too fancy and you fool yourself. In that case, Gary Zimmerman, number 65, when the Vikings was pulled off by his own quarterback's hard count.
The big left tackle out of Oregon in his 2nd year, 6'6", 277 pounds.
The key thing to remember with Gary, he's actually played 4 years of professional football, 2 in the USFL.
Makes it 2nd and 14. Ball on the 49. Wilson looking deep, having to run, scramble. He's got good yardage. Wilson across the 40, down near the 30-yard line, as Wade Wilson, showing his scrambling ability, stopped by Rod Jones.
We talked earlier about the dimension that Wade Wilson brings that Tommy Kramer right now unfortunately can't because of the various injuries that he's had. Here he sets up. He can't find anything downfield. Smart thing to do, take off running. Don't wait around and give up the sack. Many times you're going to get good, strong yardage because Tampa Bay is playing that deep double zone. And once you get past the line of scrimmage, there's nobody there for another 15 yards.
Wilson with an 18-yard pickup, running the Vikings deep into Tampa Bay territory. Ball on the 31, 1st and 10. DJ Dozier, he's got daylight. He's at the 20. And knocked out of bounds just outside of the 10-yard line by Bobby Kemp is DJ Dozier with explosive speed.
He's going to come running right into your living room off the left side of the line here. Excuse me, the right side. Now watch him cut back. And here he comes. Now watch the moves here. This is something that DJ has that's exceptional. You see the moves there, avoiding the tacklers, able to get away from another one there, high steps it, and finally gets driven out of bounds. Those are the kinds of dimensions that you look for in a running back. That's why he's the #1 draft choice out of Penn State.
A 19-yard pickup, and give a little credit to Dennis Swilly, who's been in there for a couple of plays now, replacing Kirk Loudermilk, who has a sprained left knee. And the handoff to Nelson. Nelson up the middle. Good pickup, as Darren Nelson gets inside the 5-yard line before being stopped by Ray Isom. An impressive drive by the Vikings.
And we've got another Minnesota Viking down, Dennis Swilly. What does this mean for the Vikings? Maybe they're going to have to move number 72, Dave Huffman, in to play offensive center.
And Swilly, who's been in for 3 plays before he goes down, and that certainly doesn't bring a smile to Jerry Burns' face.
14.
And Dennis Swilly is being carried off the field, having injured his leg 3 plays after replacing Kirk Loudermilk, the starting center, who hurt his left leg as well. And Danny, that's going to cause some problems.
Mike Stimford, number 94, the nose tackle for the Buccaneers, stuffs Dennis Swilley on the play. End result being John Cannon, number 78 for the Bucs, upfield, trying to come back and make the stop on Darren Nelson. Rolls right there, right into the back of Dennis Swilley's legs. You wonder how come you get paid the big bucks. That's how come Dennis Swilley's taking a ride that he did not want to take.
So, Danny, what does that do? I see Greg Cook, number 68, a tackle coming into play.
Well, as we thought, Dave Huffman, number 72, has played center before and will come in and play that position now.
Ball on the 5, 2nd and 3 for the Vikes. In motion, Rice, the handoff to Nelson. And Nelson, nowhere to go, dives forward for maybe about a yard.
James, I fully expect to see DJ Dozier take the ball into the end zone here. Jerry Burns told us, and Bob Snelker, their offensive coordinator, said that DJ Dozier has a nose for the end zone. You get him inside that 5-yard line, and he's awfully tough to stop.
Seems to turn it up a notch once he's inside the 20. He's tied for the NFC lead with 6 touchdowns. DJ Dozier, that is. 3rd and 2. Ball on the 4. In motion, Leo Lewis. Wilson back to pass. Has time. Under pressure now. And gets rid of it. So Wade Wilson, having to scramble with all of his receivers covered, good defensive coverage by the Buccaneers, has to get rid of the ball. That brings up a 4th and 2. And again, ball on a 4.
James, one of the things that happened on this play, like watching the middle of your screen, there you see Steve Jordan, 83. He's all tangled up with the linebackers. He can't even get out. 3 linebackers in a row. Wade Wilson has nobody to throw to. He does the smart thing, just put it in the dirt. Or, as they say in here, the AstroTurf.
Floyd Peters, the defensive coordinator, said that he realized that Tampa Bay would provide double coverage. He had told us yesterday they will perhaps run the ball more in to try to score from that position. Brings up a field goal try. Be a 21-yard attempt by Chuck Nelson. It's up. And still no signal, and their officials ruled it no good. So Chuck Nelson misses a 21-yard field goal attempt. And we still have a scoreless ball game in the 4th quarter. Make that the 1st quarter with 26 seconds remaining.
Let's see just where Chuck Nelson misses this kick. It's wide right. It appears that it just hits the goalpost there, nicks it, and goes outside.
And Chuck Nelson had been perfect from that distance, 4 of 4 from the 20 to 29-yard range, but he blows that one. So Tampa Bay will take over on their own 20-yard line with 26 seconds remaining in the 1st quarter, as you take a look at Ray Perkins trying to urge his troops on. In motion, Gerald Carter. DeBerg back to pass. And gets it complete across the middle over the 25-yard line, and that was Jeff Smith out of the backfield.
James, the reason why there's so much pressure on DeBerg that time was because number 77, J.D. Marleville, got run over by Chris Dolman, number 56. Chris likes that strong upfield rush, and that time he put it on J.D.
And that's the end of the 1st quarter here at the Metrodome in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's a scoreless ball game between the Buccaneers and the Vikings.
And they're going to school because they believe the message they're bringing to these young people is something that will last them a lifetime.
You know, we're here today to talk about something really important, something really special, and that's Project Charlie. There are 3,300,000 problem drinkers in the age group between 14 and 17. That's why we're here.
These kids aren't too young to learn how to make decisions that will keep them from becoming the victims of alcohol and drug abuse. And United Way supports this effort.
Now, can you all tell me why you're special? Why are you special?
Because I don't do drugs.
More and more of us in the National Football League are joining in this fight. And when you choose to help through your support of the United Way, we can all be winners.
I want you to have the courage to say no to drugs and alcohol.
The United Way. It brings out the best in all of us. This message furnished by the National Football League.
CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League is sponsored by Miller Brewing Company, sole sponsor of the U.S. Olympic Training Centers. The heartbeat of America today, Chevrolet. And by the U.S. Army, a place to be all you can be.
Start of the second quarter here at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Both teams, the Buccaneers and the Vikings, have had great scoring opportunities. Neither team was able to capitalize, and we have a nothing ball game. Danny, looks like a familiar friend of yours, huh?
Yeah, that's Mr. Viking. Of needs.
Looks like he's been around for a while.
Since 1969, he's been around in that outfit, and I think those horns look like they've got a little age on them as well.
Well, I'm sure he's probably somewhat pleased with the advancement of things in that he's playing inside the Metrodome versus outside. Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the ball on their own 27. 2nd and 3. In motion, Gerald Carter. The handoff goes to Jeff Smith, and Smith tries to bull his way up the middle before being stopped by Scott Studwell, 11-year veteran.
One of the things that Minnesota does that makes it very difficult for you to block on the run is even on first down, they'll slant their linemen and run games. And the guy that leads all of that attack is Scott Studwell, number 55 out of the University of Illinois. He tutored under Jeff Seaman here with Minnesota and has really come on, and as a matter of fact leads the Viking in tackles now.
Pickup of 2, 3rd and 1, ball on a 29. Jeff Smith in motion. DeBerg back to pass, and he finds Smith at the 30-yard line, complete. And that looks to be close enough for the first down, but it depends on the spot. Well, no need for it. The official signals first down for the Buccaneers. Let's take a look at Mike Shula signaling from the sidelines.
Steve DeBerg knows he's only got to get about 2 or 3 yards in this play, and that's all he goes for. Get the first down. You see number 35 there making the reception, Jeff Smith, and he just barely gets in the first down territory.
1st and 10. Ball on the 31 of Tampa Bay. DeBerg under pressure, and give the credit to Jesse Solomon. Jesse Solomon did not allow DeBerg to get that rhythm pass off.
Jesse Solomon, number 54, a Florida State product, came in on the blitz, knows that rhythm passing, Steve's got to get back 3 yards, 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. Now he knows Jesse's right in his face. He's got to unload the ball. Steve has only been sacked 12 times this year as a result of that rhythm passing game.
Solomon led the team with 11 solo tackles last week. He's starting off in good fashion today. Brings up a 2nd and 10, ball on the 31. And flags everywhere, as Minnesota appeared to be offsides. We'll find out if they were drawn offsides.
James, one of the things that Steve DeBerg has been doing exceptionally well over the last couple of weeks is, he gives you that hard snap, and it draws the defensive lineman off sides. Floyd Peters, the defensive coordinator for the Vikings, told us he's particularly concerned about Doug Martin because Doug likes to get upfield very quickly off the snap, and that hard count will get you.
DeBerg, the KGO pro.
Offside, defense, 2nd down.
Now, I mentioned about DeBerg being the KGO pro. He may have a little twist as well to help him draw the team offside.
Yeah, he's got a little edge. Now, watch his head there. See that head moving? That's that action that gets that defensive line real excited. And then you see number 79, Doug Martin, coming across. As I mentioned, he's the guy that's real antsy on that defensive line.
And Jerry Burns, of course, well aware of that, watching the tapes of Tampa Bay, tried to warn the officials to look for that, but it didn't work that time, bringing up a 2nd and 5 for the Bucs on their own 36. In motion, Phil Freeman. DeBerg back to pass. Across the middle, he finds Freeman, and Freeman takes it to about the 46-yard line, 47, before being stopped by Jesse Solomon. Good enough for the first down as the Bucs continue their drive.
As we said earlier, Phil Freeman is Steve DeBerg's go-to guy, the guy that, when you're in that tough spot and you need the first down, look for number 81, Phil Freeman. Steve DeBerg's awfully glad to have him back after his hamstring injury.
And a real credit to Freeman as well, because he was a running back in college out of Arizona, so he's still developing as a receiver. Not good news for the opponents. 1st and 10, ball on the 48. DeBerg back to pass. Finds James Wilder across the 50. And Wilder pulling straight ahead before being stopped again by Jesse Solomon. And Wilder gets close to first down yardage.
James, we mentioned that the Minnesota Vikings like to do a lot of stunning here. Watch number 75 just beats his man Grimes, number 66 right now. Yarno and that's Keith Millard. Gets right in there, right in Steve DeBerg's face, but Steve does an excellent job of dumping the ball off to number 32, James Wilder. That's what that rhythm passing game will do for you.
And of course, the Vikings were well aware of that. You take a look at James Wilder's woes. His productivity has gone down since '84, but again, part of that is that he's a much more versatile back now. 2nd and 1, ball on the 43 of the Vikings. Flags everywhere. DeBerg throws it, and it's intercepted by John Harris. And Harris, still on his feet, run out of bounds across midfield, but we'll wait to find out what the referees have to say regarding the flags on the field.
Chances are it's all for naught, because I think the Vikings got caught again in that hard counter.
Offside, number 75, first down.
That's Keith Millard, and that negates the interception of John Harris. But now let's watch and see if we can see Steve DeBerg's head moving again. Watch and see if you can see that bobbing of the head. There it goes now. Watch a hard snap count, and there goes Keith Millard. The old veterans can get away with that, James. The one thing that you have to do if you're a quarterback is you have to be consistent in doing the head motion. If you're not consistent, then they're going to call it on you.
Kind of like Earl Monroe in basketball when he broke up into the league with that reverse move of his that so many people thought was a carry, an actual turn with the ball. So the interception is wiped out as you take a look at Jerry Burns, and the Bucs keep their drive alive. 1st and 10, ball on the 37 of the Vikes. In motion, Gerald Carter. The handoff to Jeff Smith. He goes straight ahead. Stopped at the 45. Dallas and New England. Cowboys leading that one 7-0. Washington has a field goal. They've tied things up with Detroit. Pittsburgh and Houston trying to break a deadlock in the AFC Central. Cleveland leading Buffalo by 3. Mark Kelso had a 56-yard fumble return for the touchdown in that one. 2nd and 8, ball on the 35 of the Vikes. In motion, Jeff Smith. DeBerg across the middle, and he was looking for Mark Carrier, and there's a flag thrown, probably a late hit. Mark Carrier didn't look in time for the pass that was thrown by DeBerg.
Well, I think if you're Ray Perkins and Mark Carrier drops a football like that, you say he deserves to get the hit that he got. When the receiver's that open and the ball comes to him that cleanly, he's got to catch the football. But he did get a late shot.
Unsportsmanlike after the incomplete pass, number 55.
Well, Danny, Mark Carrier took a pretty vicious hit, but that's a pretty mean thought that you're saying he should have.
I think Ray Perkins is a little upset with Mark Carrier. He's not starting this week, and this is probably one of the reasons why. Those are the kinds of catches you got to make if you're a wide receiver. He's wide open, and now he gets the shot. It wasn't all that bad. It was more hands than anything else. Scott Stedwell, the guy that the Vikings say hits everybody in sight,
including his own teammates. 1st and 10, ball on the 20. Buccaneers didn't convert last time they were inside. We'll see this time. Jeff Smith in motion. Going for McGee is complete. And Calvin McGee, touchdown for the Buccaneers.
That's real strength, James. Number 86, Calvin McGee, just walked into the end zone with tacklers hanging on him.
Calvin McGee, one of the go-to guys for Steve DeBerg, and he finds pay dirt.
Well, he knows that he's going to get one-on-one coverage on that tight end, and there you see McGee. He doesn't get any coverage on him. And John Harris, number 44, comes across late. Joey Brown, I can't make the stop. Touchdown, no question about it this time around.
Donald Igwe-Buike for the point after, and it's good. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get on the scoreboard first. They lead it in the 2nd quarter here at the Metrodome by the score of 7-0. We'll be back in just Minnesota. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have gotten on the scoreboard first. They lead it by the score of 7-0. And Danny, I think it was pretty important emotionally and confidence-wise for the Bucs to score. They came away empty-handed after a 75-yard drive in the 1st quarter.
Well, it was so important that they went to their big tight end, Calvin McGee. They know he's the guy that can get into the end zone for them. And here you're going to see him on the right side of your screen. Steve DeBerg drops back and finds his tight end. He's not wide open, but he's pretty open. And now watch him just bull his way into the end zone. Joey Brown at number 47. Black belt karate can't stop it.
And Igwe-Buike kicking off. Neil Gugamos on the return. And Gugamos across the 30. And down at the 35-yard line, Neil Gugamos. 2nd-year player out of St. Thomas being brought down by Winston Moss. And Gugamos averaging 22 yards per return, with his longest being 42. He gets it across the 30. To take a look at the scoring drive by Tampa Bay, 9 plays, 80 yards, and 424. And the big tight end Calvin McGee takes it across for the score. That accounts for the scoring thus far in the game. 10:51 remaining in the second quarter. And yet another player down for Minnesota. And Jerry Burns, of course, who had been so frustrated due to the strike and his replacement team losing all 3 games, now being frustrated seeing a number of his regular players dropping to injury.
I believe that's Tim Newton, number 96. They call him the icebox. He's coming down. He's in the wedge. Now watch on the right side of the wedge. They're just about on the 25-yard line now. You see number 96, Tim Newton. And now let's see what happens to him. He gets hit by one of his own men, takes his knee out, and the icebox gets grounded.
So Timmy Newton moving that leg gingerly there. The 3rd Viking player to go down. Kirk Loudermilk and Dennis Swilley having gone down previously, and Jerry Burns wondering what's next.
James, I used to play in the wedge on special teams, and I know how dangerous it can be. They've changed the rules a little bit in that you can't fire into the wedge and dive at the wedgeman's legs, but still it's a very dangerous place because everybody is coming to you because that's where the ball carrier is.
Big day in college football coming up next week here on CBS as the 7th-ranked Irish of Notre Dame take on last season's champion Penn State Nittany Lions. That'll be coming your way at 12 o'clock Eastern time, and that'll be followed by numbers 1 and 2, Oklahoma and Nebraska. Can't get any better than that. That'll all be coming your way next Saturday here on CBS, and the starting time will be 12 o'clock Eastern time. As you take a look at Jerry Burns having a conversation, using his hands and trying to make his point strongly.
Well, I'm sure the point that he's trying to make is the Steve DeBerg snap counts. I know that's what he's talking to the officials about. Saying, hey, look, guys, you can't let him bob that head and give us the hard count like that in here.
And Danny, they're having a pretty heated discussion. But in the meantime, let's check in New York with Brent Musburger and get an NFL update.
Well, James, this update is on the New England Patriots. They trailed the Cowboys by 7, intercepted. Watch Steve Grogan. Pinched nerve and all. He butts his helmet and gets into the end zone. Let's go back to James.
And, of course, the Cowboys, as Brent mentioned, they're in the wild card hunt. A very important game there as we take a look. Complete across the middle to Leo Lewis. Wade Wilson finds Leo Lewis across the middle, and the Vikings get the ball up near midfield. More than enough for a first down.
One of the things that you're going to find the Buccaneers having a problem with is on defense. They've got their cornerbacks, they're young guys, and they're going to have them playing off the ball 10 to 12 yards, giving the receivers for the Vikings all kinds of running room. Those routes will be open all day for the Vikings as long as the Buccaneers sit back in that zone.
The 63,000 on hand have not had much to cheer about at this point. Up to this point in the game is Wilson looking complete as he finds Anthony Carter along the left sidelines. Anthony Carter, big play receiver for the Vikings, gets it down.
Anthony Carter is one of those players that has game speed. May not test out all that well in the 40, and everybody's looking for the guy that runs the 4.3. Well, he might not do that, but when it gets between the yard lines, that's when his speed really comes out.
And definitely a first down for the Vikings. And back in at the center position is Kirk Loudermilk, who went out earlier in the first quarter, having injured that left leg, and he's still limping on that left leg.
You can't keep a good Buckeye down, but he's back in there.
Playing hurt. First and 10 on the 39. Wilson back to pass, looking for Lewis. Ball is tipped, and the intended receiver was Leo Lewis, but Jeff Davis got a hand on that pass.
Watch both linebackers in the middle. You're going to see them take off into those zones that's going to turn their backs and run like mad because they know it's play action now. You see Jeff Davis turning his back, and now watch him jump up and just pop that ball away from Leo Lewis. That's the kind of thing you expect to see from Tampa Bay when they play that zone with those linebackers. As soon as they read pass, they're going to turn their backs and run in the opposite directions.
And Davis is over on the sidelines. Scott Brantley is in for Jeff Davis as Davis was nicked a little bit on that play. Second and 10, ball on the 39 of the Bucs. Wilson under pressure. running for his life to the sidelines. A pickup maybe of 3 yards. Wade Wilson under tremendous pressure by the Tampa Bay defense. Run out of bounds by Dan Cilio and Kevin Kellen.
One of the things to look for now is number 52, Scott Brantley's in the ball game. Well, now he's going back out because they're going to the nickel defense. But let's watch when Brantley's back in the ball game. He had some trouble last week with the tight ends down against St. Louis. And let's watch and see if Minnesota comes back to him and that same tight end play.
Brings up a 3rd and 7. Ball marked on the 36-yard line of Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay on top by 7. 10:01 remaining in the second quarter. Wilson out of the shotgun. Their green package with 3 receivers in. And Wilson complete to Hassan Jones. First down for the Vikings. And the Vikings are on the march.
You see the 3 wideouts, James, but when I watch at the top of the screen, that's where Hassan is going to come from. He comes across with a slant pattern, man on man, tight coverage, but he beats Ricky Reynolds right now, and it's a perfectly thrown pass by Wade Wilson that helps Hassan Jones make the key reception.
So Minnesota keeps their drive alive. Ball on a 24-yard line of Tampa Bay. 1st and 10. Wilson pitches back to Darren Nelson. Nelson at the 20, still on his feet. And Darren Nelson with about a 7-yard pickup down at about the 17-yard line. Still a tie ball game in Washington. Pittsburgh leading Houston only by 3. And Cleveland, Ray Ellis 27-yard fumble return to score in that game. Cleveland leading Buffalo 10-7. And Indianapolis has come back to tie the Dolphins at 14 apiece. 2nd and 2, ball on the 16. As Rice, the ball carrier, gets across the 15 to about the 14-yard line. And the Vikings looking to capitalize inside the 20. St. Louis coming back on the Rams. Of course, St. Louis came back from a 25-point deficit last week against these Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win that game.
And the Bucs know that feeling, believe me.
Jerry Burns in his 2nd season as the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. 60-year-old head coach who's got a good sense of humor. 3rd and 1. Ball on the 15. First down for sure by Rick Finney. The rookie running back from Washington at 6'1", 245, a lot of power and an excellent blocker, but this time he's running.
Well, they need a big power back here in Minnesota, and at 245, Rick gives him all of that. You see him just bull his way down for the first down. That's the dimension that they have been missing in the past because you got the Darren Nelsons and the DJ Doziers who are smaller running backs. Now they've got that big bull at fullback.
And believe it or not, Finney says he wants to lose about 10 pounds for next season so that he can improve his quickness. But the Vikings will take his strength right now. They've got a 1st and 10. Ball on the 12-yard line of the Bucs. Wilson back to pass. The intended receiver was DJ Dozier out of the backfield, and Dozier thought perhaps the pass was intended for Anthony Carter as it was thrown over his head.
Down there, you don't think it's intended for anyone else. You catch the football if you can. DJ Dozier made a mistake. He knows it as good as anyone else on the field. He's being replaced by Darren Nelson, and you see DJ.
And that's DJ's territory down there.
Hey, that's where he smells the goal line and takes it on in. But I think that time he heard some footsteps coming from the other direction as well.
7:09 remaining in the second quarter. 2nd and 10 for the Vikings. Ball on the 12 for the Bucs. Wilson. And the ball hit the shoulders of Darren Nelson. Wade Wilson perhaps could be faulted for that pass.
Well, yeah, you'd have to be Harry Houdini to catch that when it was thrown around him. He had to spin like a top to try to just get around and get his hands on the ball. Wade just underthrew him just a little bit. This is a tough pass to throw to because your back is sliding out on an angle, on a very difficult angle. Now he should have thrown the ball. He releases it a little bit too late and behind Darren Nelson, and he just can't get around. Had he let Darren Nelson, it would have been 6. And you see this unusual sight. Tommy Kramer, healthy, on the sideline alongside Jerry Burns.
Big play for the Vikings, a 3rd and 10 situation, but the Vikings call a timeout. They want to talk it over as Jerry Burns wants to discuss matters with Wade Wilson to try to get into the end zone. Along with Dan Jiggets, I'm James Brown coming to you from the Metrodome here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lead the Vikings by the score of 7-0, but the Vikings are in striking territory. 3rd and 10, ball on the 12. What's been the story up to this point?
Well, James, both teams have missed golden opportunities to score. Vikings missed a field goal. The Buccaneers missed clearly a touchdown. And as a result, you got the Buccaneers up by 1. Calvin McGee did score for them.
Green package, 3 receivers in for the Vikings. Out of the shotgun, Wade Wilson. Wilson going to the corner where he has no one. Leo Lewis was in the general vicinity, but Wade Wilson threw it to the deep corner of the end zone.
Wade did the smart thing, though. He read the blitz, saw he didn't have an open receiver, a 3-step drop. You've got to get rid of the ball on time or you're going to get the sack. So he just put it up in the corner of the end zone where nobody can catch it except maybe a fan up in the 3rd row.
And Chuck Nelson, who earlier missed a 21-yard field goal attempt, will try it again. This one will be a 29-yard field goal. He's 4 or 5 on the season from that distance. It's up. And this one is through the uprights as Minnesota is on the scoreboard. It comes at the 6:58 mark of the 2nd quarter. They cut into the deficit by 4. First game of a doubleheader Sunday here on CBS. And a game very important between the Bucs and the Vikes. Again, as they're looking at possible wild card playoffs. And still to come here on CBS later on this afternoon, some of you will see the New York Giants take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Randall Cunningham, certainly the story with the Eagles this year, while others will see the Green Bay Packers take on the Seattle Seahawks.
And you look at that Giants-Philadelphia game, you start thinking about the other wild card possibilities, and Philadelphia suddenly is one, and the Giants aren't.
Well, Danny, talk about what's going on. Take a look at the NFC Eastern standings. Washington enjoying a 2-game advantage over Dallas and Philadelphia. But the wild card picture still a close one there.
But the problem isn't that NFC East is that that's a tough division for anybody because you keep knocking each other off in that division, and suddenly you find out that the Buccaneers or the Vikings were able to slip up on you.
And the Redskins, having lost to the Eagles last week in a tight ball game with Detroit, have pulled starting quarterback Jay Schrader, who's only 5 of 10 for 33 yards, and has been replaced by Doug Williams. Of course, Doug Williams led the Skins to a victory their first game of the season when Jay went down in the first quarter.
These Tampa Bay Buccaneers know Doug very well. He started out down there as a #1 draft choice back in '77.
So Chuck Nelson is kicking off back deep for the Bucs. Bobby Futrell, he'll down it in the end zone, smartly so. So the Buccaneers will start their drive from their own 20. Take a look at Steve DeBerg talking with Ray Perkins, and DeBerg certainly has had a hot hand all season long. No problem with him putting points on the scoreboard.
No, their problem has been going into the 4th quarter, the offense and the defense realizing that that's the critical time. That's the time when you shut the door on the other team, and they have not been able to do it so far this season.
DeBerg enjoying his best season as a pro. As you take a look, ranked 4th in the NFL, actually tied for 3rd with Ken O'Brien. 94% quarterback rating.
And no one knows quite what those ratings mean. All they know is that it means it's good if you're up near the top.
He's doing everything right.
Yeah.
1st and 10, ball on the 20 of the Bucs. 6:52 remaining in the 2nd quarter. DeBerg looking for Calvin McGee, but give it credit to good coverage by Joey Browner.
Joey Browner, another one of the football-playing Browner brothers, All-Pro 2 times, the only player in Minnesota to go back to the Pro Bowl twice, makes an exceptional play here, coming right across the middle of the screen. Now watch him reach in here, slap the ball away. Those are the kinds of plays that All-Pro safeties make.
Joey Browner had an outstanding week last week against the Raiders. 9 tackles, 1 assist, an interception, and a pass breakup. 2nd and 10, ball on the 20 for the Bucs. Bruce Hill in motion for the Bucs. DeBerg finds Jeff Smith out of the backfield across the 25 to the 26-yard line. Stopped by Jesse Solomon.
James, one of the questions you have to ask yourself, and watching already in the first quarter and going in deep into the second quarter, neither team is running the football very much. Tampa Bay used to be strictly a running team. They've got James Wilder back there. They haven't put the ball in his hands on the running plays yet. And the same thing with Minnesota. They really haven't been running the football very much. It's been more that little dink pass to the running backs, the long handoff, as I like to call it, and just let them run with it out one-on-one against the defense.
Should Wilder be running more?
I think so.
Pickup of 6, 3rd and 4, ball on the 26. In motion, Mark Carrier. DeBerg gets it away in a hurry, finds Calvin McGee complete to the 34-yard line, stopped by Wyman Henderson. And Calvin McGee showing those good hands.
Not only good hands, but watch, this is the most important thing a tight end can do. His release off the line of scrimmage. Beat your man right now. There, he's got a little cornerback, Wyman Henderson, to beat. Those are the kinds of things that set you up for the good reception. He makes the little out spin move there, and he's wide open for the reception. But getting off the line of scrimmage is something that he does extremely well. That gets him open down the field.
And good enough for the first down. Tampa 1st and 10, ball on their own 34. Jeff Smith in motion. The release man, Wilder, out of the backfield, up to the 40, and down, that time by Jesse Solomon. So James Wilder coming out of the backfield, the release man, and picks up good yardage. Called it a pickup of about 7.
And there we see the play selection. You see how small the number of rushes are, especially for the Buccaneers. It's very accentuated. Everybody's going to the pass, but also I bet you that 50% of those passes that each team has thrown have been to the running backs.
Pickup of 7, 2nd and 3. Pitch back to Jeff Smith. He's stopped in the backfield. Good hit that time by Henry Thomas, the rookie out of LSU, 6'2", 263 pounds.
Maybe that's how come they're not running the ball. Middle of your screen, number 97, Henry Thomas. He's going to make the play. There you see him avoiding the block of Randy Grimes, number 16. He just blows into the backfield. Looks like he should have a Buccaneers uniform on as quickly as he got back there.
Thomas came to the Vikings training camp as a rookie thinking that he'd be a good backup player. He's finding himself in a starting position. 3rd and 5 for the Bucs. Ball on their own 39. 2 receivers to the right for Tampa. DeBerg back to pass. Has to get rid of it quickly. Intended receiver was Calvin McGee, but it's incomplete. Good coverage that time by Walker Lee Ashley.
It's really nice of Chris Martin to help him back up, after he knocked him down to the ground. And Walker Lee Ashley, they knew they had him. They were on him a little early, so you help a guy up off the ground, then he doesn't feel as bad. Walker Lee Ashley probably would be starting for the Vikings had it not been for the fine play of Scott Studwell, number 55.
Frank Garcia on to punt again. Back deep for the Vikings, Leo Lewis. And Garcia gets a high one up. Lewis at the 27. Down at the 35-yard line. So the Minnesota Vikings will take over. They'll have it with 3:58 remaining in the first half. Ball game. Tampa on top by only 4. And Danny, Tampa's not had any problem scoring. Their problem has been holding on to the lead, as we mentioned at the top of the show.
And talk about fading fast. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, the last 3 weeks of the season, they have just blown huge fourth quarter leads. And Ray Perkins is trying to solve that problem now.
Wilson under pressure, having to scramble, decides to run it. No, he gets rid of it, and it's complete to Steve Jordan. And Jordan, with a good catch that he had to turn around and get, takes it to midfield for the first down for the Vikings.
Not only was that a good catch, that's a Pro Bowl catch. That's the reason why Steve Jordan is in the Pro Bowl. Exceptional athletic ability. Bottom of your screen, number 83. Watch him on his release, makes his block, slow block there. Now gets up, gets knocked down, gets up, and gets back into the pattern. That's a sign of an all-pro athlete. Now watch him step back, make the catch, and then bull his way to a first down yardage.
A 17-yard pickup for the Vikings. Ball on the 48 of the Bucs. In motion, Leo Lewis. The handoff goes to DJ Dozier. Pickup maybe of 2.
I'm not quite sure why DJ cut back. He got good movement from his offensive line on the left side that time, but he's still decided to cut back right.
Washington out in front by 7. George Rogers, a starting running back for the Redskins, out of that game with a hamstring pull. And Cleveland by 10 over Buffalo. Bernie Kosar, 15-yard pass to Reggie Langhorne. Still knotted up. Indianapolis, of course, with Eric Dickerson in the backfield, hoping for the wild card playoff. 1st and 10. We'll make that second and 9. The scoreboard is wrong here. 2nd and 9. Wilson under pressure. He's down. Chris Washington looked to have gotten to him first, along with Winston Moss.
Now it's 3rd down a lot more. You know, I was surprised to see Ron Holmes, number 90, pick that ball up and try to run with it, because that'll get you out of breath real quick. And you know the big guys up front don't like to get too tired. Now from the end zone, you're going to get a chance to see Wade Wilson get some real pressure. Loop inside, number 94, Mike Stenzer comes around, but he gets pressure right at the middle from 90, Ron Holmes, flushes him out of the pocket, and Winston Moss, number 57, makes the sack.
Danny, why wouldn't that be a fumble?
Well, I think the reason why is they probably ruled him in the grasp already. You saw someone else crawling around down near his legs, and they said, hey, he's in the grasp. You know, kill the play right there. But I'm sure Ron Holmes is saying, hey, not only was it a fumble, but I could have scored. The big guys don't get that many opportunities to score.
It's a 13-yard loss. Brings up a 3rd and 22 for the Vikes. The officials stopped play to discuss something down on the field.
I'm sure Ron Holmes is going to go over there and tell him he had that fumble recovery. They may well be reviewing that play to see if indeed it was a fumble. Every time it seems we run a replay back, they take a real close look at it, and they may have found something.
Take a look at the replay official, Mark Burns, and the communicator, Philip Ayub. And we'll take a look at it ourselves to see if we can determine.
Now, the key here is to see if Wade Wilson, number 11, does his knee hit the ground before the ball comes out. The ball is out before he goes down to the ground. It is indeed a fumble, and now number 90, Ron Holmes, comes around to recover it and could have taken it in for a touchdown.
They're looking at it from all angles to make certain that it is conclusive. Looks like me and you up there discussing things. Threw his hands up.
Here's another look at it now. Let's see if Wade actually gets down to the ground before the ball pops out. It's a tough call, and I know it's extremely tough for the guys up in the booth. They decide let Minnesota keep the ball.
And it's 3rd and 22 for the Vikings. Wilson under pressure again, and he's down.
Kevin Kellen, number 75. He's a University of Minnesota product. He's got to be happy about that sack.
He certainly wants to play well in front of the hometown fans, and Kevin Kellen drops Wade Wilson, so that'll bring up a punting situation for the Vikings.
We got to talk to Kevin's mom and dad yesterday at the hotel, and they were real excited about him coming back to play up here.
So we're at the 2-minute mark of the 2nd quarter. We'll take the break. As you take a look at Greg Coleman, his team is down by 4. A half here in Minnesota. Tampa Bay on top, 7-3.
James, everybody likes to argue about controversial situations. The officials ruled in this case that Wade Wilson, number 11, was indeed in the grasp. Number 51, Chris Washington's got him by the ankle. 57, Winston Moss finishes it off. He fumbled later, but the officials ruled that Minnesota keeps the football, and I agree with the call.
Greg Coleman will do the punting for the Vikings. Back deep for the Bucks is Bobby Futrell. And Coleman gets it away and hits in the 25, and Futrell takes it and gets leveled out of bounds by Neil Gugamos. So Tampa Bay will take it over with 1:51 remaining in the 2nd quarter, and they lead it by 4. 1st and 10, ball on the 27 for Tampa Bay. In motion, Jeff Smith. DeBerg under pressure, has to get rid of it quickly. And again, Minnesota well aware of the rhythm passing game of Steve DeBerg getting to him. Danny, the question is how when DeBerg uses only a 3 to 5 step drop.
Yeah, but you got a guy, number 56, Chris Dolman, working against number 77, J.D. Marleville at the top of your screen. Chris Dolman's a former outside linebacker who beefed up to play defensive end. Outstanding speed, and he gets to Steve on a 3-step drop. You know a guy has got to be moving to do that.
As you take a look, fans here remembering the past, they should look at Steve DeBerg. Well, Steve DeBerg is 14 of 22, 142 yards, 1 touchdown, only 10 yards rushing for the Bucks. 2nd and 10, ball on the 27. Flags, Minnesota jumped across.
See, he's going, wait, hold up.
As well he should.
Didn't you know I pulled you off sides?
The Vikes may be a little frustrated with that by now.
That's got to become a concern of the officials, even when you let a quarterback continuously get away with that hard snap count and moving his head. When are you going to start calling it on the quarterback and not on the defense?
And if Jerry Burns has made the officials aware.
False start, number 77, second down.
Well, they called it on J.D. Marlavelle.
Well, J.D.'s been having some problems over there with Dolman. There he's going from the up position. See, his hand is not down. Left side of your screen. There you see him moving just a little bit early.
Danny, it didn't look as if J.D. Marlavelle moved from here.
Well, I think one of the things that they do is, the officials look for somebody to blame it on when they know that quarterback, he's on the right side of your screen there. You see number 77, J.D. Marlavelle. Now let's see if he moves just a little. There, he does. He moves a little bit early, just before the snap count, and comes out of there.
2nd and 15. DeBerg out of the shotgun. Under pressure again, and he gets rid of it, and it's complete to Mark Carrier. Not even back to the line of scrimmage, though, as Mark Carrier is stopped by number 48, Reggie Rutland.
James, to go back in J.D. Marlavelle's defense, when you're playing at left tackle position, it's the blind side of the quarterback. You're playing against speed rushers. You try to get that little edge by just anticipating that snap count, pulling out just a little bit early. Every once in a while, you get caught on it.
And Marlavelle's got to be thinking, as he mentioned to us last night, he's very concerned about the speed of Chris Dolman.
Well, Chris runs something like a 4.5 or a 4.6, so it makes it very difficult for an offensive tackle to stay up with it.
And don't forget, coming up at halftime, Brent Musburger and Irv Cross will have scores and highlights from our New York studio from around the league, including interviews with Barry Switzer and Tom Osborne, the coaches of the number 1 and 2 teams in college football. It's all at halftime on the NFL Today, and we understand that Barry Switzer sustained an injury on the sideline, so we'll get an update on that from Brent and Irv in the studio.
He got hit on the sideline yesterday, and he's had problems with the quarterback position, the running back position. They lost Jamel Holloway, their fine quarterback, and now Barry Switzer might go on the injury reserve list as well.
Third and 13, ball on the 24. Tampa Bay 44% conversion on third downs. We'll see. As DeBerg finds Gerald Carter for first down yardage and more.
And very quickly calls a timeout. And one of the things we've been very critical of the Buccaneers with is usage of their timeouts during the 2-minute drill. Now they seem to be using them very critically in very critical situations and taking advantage of it. From the end zone, on the right side of your screen, you're going to see Gerald Carter make an excellent reception on the go route. Steve DeBerg finds him downfield. He just lays it up and gets Gerald on stride. Gerald makes a nice move there to avoid Gudenmos, and now he gets a couple of extra yards against Carl Lee, number 39.
A 28-yard pickup by Gerald Carter, who is a good possession receiver with deceptive speed. And it's kind of interesting because Gerald Carter says he takes nothing for granted. One of the reasons he hustles so is because he's been cut before.
Well, any player that's gone through that kind of a situation and has a head coach like Ray Perkins and knows that he doesn't put up with very much of the funny stuff, you're going to work hard every time you go out on the field, because if not, this man makes very tough decisions very quickly. He says, hey, look, you don't work, you're out of here.
1:21 remaining in the half. 1st and 10, ball on the 48 of Minnesota. 4 wideouts in for the Bucs. DeBerg out of the shotgun. And DeBerg is sacked. The ball is loose. And it's recovered by Minnesota's Keith Millard.
James, we talked about number 56, Chris Dolman. Blindside of Steve DeBerg. He comes in on a hard upfield rush, and boy, does he put it on him. Those are the kinds of things that always cause fumbles because the quarterback has no idea he's going to get hit. And now you see Keith Millard, number 75, make the recovery of the fumble.
That's the second fumble by Tampa Bay today.
And a key turnaround in the ball game. You're going into the 2-minute drill. You lose the ball, and suddenly you give it back to the Vikings on their own 30-yard line.
And Minnesota will have 1:14 to do it in. Wilson back to pass. Looking for Lewis. Incomplete.
And Wade Wilson knows that he had that one. He just overthrew Leo Lewis. Had that one wide open to the sideline. But one of the things that's interesting about that is that they're not afraid to go for all the marbles. You see them working very close to that end zone instead of working the dinking passing game underneath to the running backs. That's something they told us yesterday that indeed they were going to try to do. When they got down in scoring territory, they're going to go for it. They're a big strike offense.
2nd and 10. Ball on the 30 of the Bucks. Wade Wilson, 7 of 17 for 91 yards. Back to pass again. Having to scramble. Wilson at the 20 to about the 18-yard line. And Wade Wilson looks to have run for the first down himself before being stopped by Ray Isom.
Excellent coverage by the Buccaneers led Wade Wilson to do one thing, scramble. But the key block is thrown by number 63, Loudermilk. Now watch, as Wade gets ready to pull out and scramble. Now watch Loudermilk turn around, cut number 56, and there you go. Wade Wilson's off and running down the field. Makes a couple of nice moves. We referred to that earlier. The scrambling ability is key for the Vikings right now. And there you see Tommy Kramer standing alongside agreeing with us.
Now, the Vikings have used their last timeout of the half. The question is, did they use that timeout too quickly?
No, I think it was very wise. They saved themselves almost a minute to go in the game. This way they can work their passing game as well as take a couple of runs, work towards that sideline and stop the clock when you have to.
Wade Wilson did not expect to be the starting quarterback coming into today's game. He said he expected Coach Burns to start Tommy Kramer to keep down or eliminate all the talk about the quarterback controversy. And instead, Wilson leads the Vikings in rushes with 33 yards. So it's 1st and 10 for the Vikes. Ball on the Buccaneers' 18-yard line. 57 seconds remaining in a half. Vikings looking to score. In motion, Leo Lewis. Wilson back to pass. Out of the backfield, complete to Allen Rice. And run out of bounds. Allen Rice coming out of the backfield with the reception.
The key there is, if you're a defense, is you want to stop those running backs from getting out of bounds. They're not able to do that with an Allen Rice because he's a veteran. He knows how to get out of bounds once he catches that ball. You got to kill the clock. Wade Wilson's going to get that nice dink pass off to Allen out in the flat. He catches it, takes it upfield for as much as he can get, does a smart thing, heads towards that sideline and stops the clock.
6-yard pickup brings up 2nd and 4. Ball on the 12. In motion, Allen Rice. Wilson back to pass. And the intended receiver was Darren Nelson, and the ball off of his hands. A catchable ball?
I think it was a catchable ball, but Wade Wilson's been having a problem throwing to the right side. I'm not sure exactly what the problem is, but every time he gets that back flaring out of the backfield, it's the 3rd time now he's had a difficult time getting it to that back, just flaring out.
That brings up an important 3rd down situation, 3rd and 4. Ball on the 12-yard line of the Buccaneers, and Minnesota on 3rd down conversions, 5 of 9. In the backfield, DJ Dozier and Allen Rice. The pitch to Rice. Rice tries to get to the 10, but Chris Washington wouldn't allow it. Still shy of the 1st down, so that'll bring up a 4th down situation for the Vikings.
James, it surprises me a bit that the Vikings did try to work the end zone a little bit more on that series. I expected them to send some receivers into the end zone and work it a little bit, trying to squeeze that ball in there.
A 22-yard field goal attempt. Make it a 27-yard field goal attempt by Chuck Nelson. It's up. And it's good. So Chuck Nelson, after missing a 21-yarder earlier, comes back and boots the Vikings to within 1 of the Bucks.
But the Vikings can't be too excited about that situation. There, they should have had 7 points, just as they should have had early in the game. These kinds of things come back in the 4th quarter and scare you to death because you know what happens when it gets late in the game and you've blown those easy points.
And don't forget, coming up at halftime, Brent Musburger and Irv Cross in our New York studios. They'll bring you up to date on all the scores and highlights from around the league today, including interviews with Barry Switzer and Tom Osborne
of Nebraska, and I'm looking forward to that. Next week here on CBS, you're going to see that big game between #1 ranked Oklahoma and #2 ranked Nebraska. It ought to be a barn burner for real.
And of course, that game will be preceded by Penn State Notre Dame.
From State College, Pennsylvania.
And Notre Dame, of course, with the young man who many consider to be the front runner for the Heisman Trophy, TB.
Timmy Brown. Is he in relation to you, JB?
I wish. I'd like to be his agent. So it's a 1-point ball game here at the Metrodome. The Bucks on top, 7-6. Chuck Nelson will be kicking for the Vikings. Back deep for the Buccaneers, Bobby Futrell. Futrell in his second year out of Elizabeth City State, 5'11", 190. He's got good speed. A low line drive. Jeff Smith picks it up on his 10, across the 20 and down at about the 24-yard line. Jeff Smith. So with 7 seconds remaining in the first half, Steve DeBerg comes on.
If you're the Buccaneers in this situation, you go for the Big Ben play and put 3 wide receivers out on one side and just throw the bomb, hope for a penalty. The half can't end on the defensive penalty, and then you get another shot at a field goal. Or do you just run the clock out with only 7 seconds left?
Boy, are you an optimist. My goodness.
I don't think there's any question about that. It looks like a rugby scrum.
And that'll be the last play of the half here in Minnesota as the Buccaneers lead it 7-6. So that's the end of the first half with Tampa on top of Minnesota by the score of 7-6.
CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League is sponsored by Oldsmobile Quality. Feel it at your nearest Oldsmobile dealer. Metropolitan Life and affiliated companies. Get met. It pays. And by Magnavox. When you're just a little smarter, people notice. Magnavox. Smart. Very smart.
And this quarterback is in. Doug Williams off the bench for Joe Gibbs, and he has thrown 2 touchdown passes. 15 yards to Kelvin Bryant and 42 yards here to Gary Clark. And Irv Cross, the Washington Redskins have taken a 17-3 lead on the Lions. Your thoughts on the change?
Well, it's a shocker, you know, because Trader was playing well in the first half of the ball game, and he was still pulled because Joe Gibbs said he would not take Schrader out of the game no matter what, even though he only came in the game completing 40% of his passes. Williams came in, he's hot now. I guess maybe he's going to be the starter.
Hey, Irv, the Cardinals can come from behind, can't they? And they'll be forced to do it again, 17-14 over the Rams. Indianapolis and Miami. Seesaw game. Colts playing the Dolphins tough here. 2 touchdowns for Marino in that game. Kansas City and the Jets. That's a battle of the field goals in that game. Tampa Bay and Minnesota, 7-6 now. The Bucs with a 1-point lead. Cleveland in solid command of this game, 17-7 over the Bills. Houston and Pittsburgh are tied a field goal apiece in the third. Dallas and New England. Cowboys up by a touchdown. Irv Cross, how'd they get it?
Well, Danny White to Doug Cobbs. It's only a 3-yard pass here, but a big play again for the Cowboys, who were struggling like crazy to earn some more respect in the league.
Irv, January 1st, the 6-game bowl menu is all set right now. The Orange Bowl on New Year's night will have the Hurricanes of Miami against the winner of next Saturday's Oklahoma-Nebraska game. The loser will go to the Fiesta Bowl and take on Florida State. The Cotton Bowl will have Notre Dame. They will play the Southwest Conference champion. The Sugar Bowl, unbeaten Syracuse to take on the Southeastern Conference champion. The Rose Bowl, Michigan State against either UCLA or USC. Citrus Bowl, Penn State will play Clemson. And coming up now, we'll be talking to Nebraska coach Tom Osborne and the injured Oklahoma coach Barry Switzer, who will limp onto the field Saturday, a 3-point underdog. Coming up after these messages from your local station.
Michael Pere, Michael Beck. One cop's a time bomb, the other's the fuse. Dangerous nights, seductive nights. Houston.
Outstanding college football doubleheader coming your way on CBS. We'll start at noon East.
7-6, and Dan Jiggis again, only 1 touchdown scored in the first half. My question is, are you surprised at such a low scoring affair?
Well, I think for the first time in a few weeks now, you see the Buccaneers playing a fine defense in the Minnesota Vikings, so they haven't been able to run up that score like they have against St. Louis. End result being it's a tight ball game, 7-6. Minnesota's been surprising in that they haven't put as many points on the board and scored effectively when they've gotten the ball. They had to kick 2 field goals. Here we get a look at Steve DeBerg on the first drive of the game. Here he throws down to Gerald Carter down on the goal line. I thought Gerald Carter, number 87, had scored on this play, but indeed the officials ruled that he was short by just inches, and on the ensuing play, the Buccaneers fumble the ball away. Jeff Smith, number 35, they got no points out of that play. Game could very easily be 14-6 right now, because here's the reason why. The second touchdown play, I call it, this one to Calvin McGee, number 86. Steve DeBerg finds him down in the end zone. Now watch, Calvin McGee knew what happened to Gerald Carter earlier. He reaches in and guarantees himself a touchdown by just bullying his way into the end zone.
And that accounted for the only touchdown of the first half. Again, Tampa Bay on top 7-6. Statistically, it would seem that Tampa Bay has not been rushing the ball as much as perhaps they should.
Well, Tampa Bay's always been known as a rushing team, but look now, 9 yards rushing for the first half. Minnesota fairly evenly distributed, about the same in total yardage.
Well, what do you think is going to have to happen in the second half for either one of these teams to get a little more productivity?
Well, I think Minnesota, number one, has got to go downfield in the passing game. And in terms of the Buccaneers, they've got to go back to that same passing game that's worked for them. Short outside to the backs, intermediate to the receivers downfield, and defeat that zone of the Vikings.
All right, and we'll be back with the start of the second half in just a moment. CBS Sports coverage of NFL football will continue after this message and a word from your local station.
CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League is sponsored by Honda, maker of the CRX-SI. Miller Lite, proud sponsor of NFL Lineman of the Year. There's only one light beer, Miller Lite. And by MasterCard. This season, make every purchase mean more. MasterCard can make a difference.
And we're back for the start of the second half here in Minnesota. Tampa Bay leading Minnesota 7-6. Donald Igwe-Buike kicking off back deep for Minnesota. Neil Gugamos. And we're underway. A short kick fielded by Allen Rice at his own 8 across the 20 and across the 25-yard line. Allen Rice with the return for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, in last week's game, there was a quarterback change at the half, and we have it once again here in Minnesota as Tommy Kramer comes on to start the second half. And Danny, obvious implications there?
Well, I talked to Tommy Kramer before the game out on the field, and he said, he would be very disappointed if he didn't get a chance to play a little bit more because he feels that the injury, the pinched nerve, is subsided, and indeed he is ready to play football.
So Tommy Kramer will try to get his Vikings going, and on the scoreboard touchdown-wise as he hands off to Darren Nelson. Nelson tries to turn the right corner up close to the 30-yard line, a pickup of about 4. So Tommy Kramer, the 11-year pro out of Rice, coming off of a shoulder problem, always has had good games against the Bucs.
Well, Tommy Kramer's had good football games against a lot of people in the NFC Central Division. He was, as I said earlier, he was a starting quarterback in the Pro Bowl last year. He's $1 million baby at quarterback, and you can't have a guy like him sitting on the bench. But he's got to be productive if he's going to replace a guy like Wade Wilson, who indeed has been very productive for the Vikings.
And Tommy Kramer was not last week. Only 5 of 16 completions for 54 yards. 2nd and 6. The handoff to DJ Dozier, and Dozier to the right. Pickup of about 2 before being stopped by Irvin Randall. And DJ Dozier a little slow in getting up off of the turf. And they say that Irvin Randall can really hit, and DJ Dozier limping right now, the 4th Viking player to go down to injury today.
And it appears as if it may be an ankle injury. He probably twisted it on that turf. That's one of the things that AstroTurf does to you. Watch DJ Dozier right in the middle of your screen, number 42, makes his cut into the line of scrimmage and somehow or another gets that ankle up underneath of him, twisted. He makes a beautiful cut there. And now let's see if we can find out where that ankle got twisted at. Boy, Scott Brantley put a hit on him, and I think everyone piling on just got that ankle twisted around in the turf. Many times those shoes that they wear in the AstroTurf adhere to the surface so well that when you try to twist that ankle to get away, it just won't move out of the turf, and thus you end up with a lot of ankle and knee injuries.
And as if Jerry Burns
the pinched nerve is subsided, and indeed he is ready to play football.
So Tommy Kramer will try to get his Vikings going, and on the scoreboard touchdown-wise as he hands off to Darren Nelson. Nelson tries to turn the right corner up close to the 30-yard line, a pickup of about 4. So Tommy Kramer, the 11-year pro out of Rice, coming off of a shoulder problem, always has had good games against the Bucs.
Well, Tommy Kramer's had good football games against a lot of people in the NFC Central Division. He was, as I said earlier, he was a starting quarterback in the Pro Bowl last year. He's $1 million baby at quarterback, and you can't have a guy like him sitting on the bench. But he's got to be productive if he's going to replace a guy like Wade Wilson, who indeed has been very productive for the Vikings.
And Tommy Kramer was not last week. Only 5 of 16 completions for 54 yards. 2nd and 6. The handoff to DJ Dozier, and Dozier to the right. Pickup of about 2 before being stopped by Irvin Randall. And DJ Dozier a little slow in getting up off of the turf. And they say that Irvin Randall can really hit, and DJ Dozier limping right now, the 4th Viking player to go down to injury today.
And it appears as if it may be an ankle injury. He probably twisted it on that turf. That's one of the things that AstroTurf does to you. Watch DJ Dozier right in the middle of your screen, number 42, makes his cut into the line of scrimmage and somehow or another gets that ankle up underneath of him twisted. He makes a beautiful cut there. And now let's see if we can find out where that ankle got twisted at. Boy, Scott Brantley put a hit on him, and I think everyone piling on just got that ankle twisted around in the turf. Many times those shoes that they wear in the AstroTurf adhere to the surface so well that when you try to twist that ankle to get away, it just won't move out of the turf, and thus you end up with a lot of ankle and knee injuries.
And as if Jerry Burns hasn't seen enough of injuries in the first half, now he's got DJ Dozier. And of course, keep in mind that Alfred Anderson, the starting fullback, did not even suit up. He's on the inactive list. He's got a pinched nerve in his neck. That occurred the week before last.
While we have a minute, we're going to try to bring you up to date on the scores. Is that Dallas New England score? That's not very surprising.
Danny White with a touchdown pass to Doug Cosby. Doug Williams touchdown passes of 15 yards to Kelvin Bryant and 42 yards to Gary Clark, and the Skins lead at 17-3 over Detroit. All tied up, Houston and Pittsburgh. And Cleveland expanding their lead by 17 over Buffalo.
The Battle of Lake Erie.
All tied up between the Jets and Kansas City. And Miami by 1 over Indianapolis. Minnesota 5 of 10 on 3rd down conversions. It's 3rd and 2. Ball on their own 34. Kramer looking for Carter, complete. And Carter has the first down near midfield, call it the 48-yard line. Ray Isom on the stop. So Tommy Kramer, whom players were saying did not have the zip on his passes, throws a completion.
And one of the players that was saying that was number 81, Anthony Carter. But, you know, Tommy Kramer finds it here. He puts some steam on the ball, the out route, tough one to throw to. He gets Anthony Carter in fine shape there, and he avoids one tackle, but he can't avoid number 28, Ray Isom.
A 14-yard pickup by Anthony Carter. Wide to the right. Leo Lewis wide to the left. Pitch to Allen Rice. Rice across the 50, still on his feet. Good second effort by Allen Rice. 5'10", 204 pounds, a 4th-year player out of Baylor.
James, the key block on this play is thrown by number 20, little Darren Nelson. Watch on the corner, up top of your screen. Darren Nelson takes out the outside linebacker with a beautiful picture-perfect block. He takes out 51 Chris Washington, and Allen Rice goes upfield for good yardage.
Brings up a 2nd and 3. Ball on the 45-yard line of the Bucs. And DJ Dozier, we understand, has a sprained ankle. They're taping it now as Kramer hands off to Nelson. And Nelson gets ever so close to the first down yardage. Looks like it might be close enough for a measurement, if not indeed the first down. But you take a look at DJ Dozier having that ankle wrapped up.
One of the things
Loudermick, we saw, he went down earlier. He came back into the game still limping, and apparently they're trying to get Dozier ready to do the same.
Well, they're going to take that shoe off, retape the ankle with even more tape than it's got on it now, and then they're going to probably put another spat on. There you see his tape job already. Probably a little loose right now. Cut that tape off, put a real strong tape job on, socks back on, put the shoe on, and then you put what they call a spat on it to keep that shoe from turning over.
And Minnesota gets the first down. So Tommy Kramer moving his ball club across midfield. Ball on the 42 of the Buccaneers. 1st and 10. Kramer back to pass. Has it batted down. He was looking for Leo Lewis, but Mike Stensrud, the former Viking player, got a hand on the ball.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are taking a page out of the Minnesota Vikings defensive playbook. Here you see him, number 94, Mike Stensrud, coming across on a slant. He beats Kurt Loudermilk, sticks that big paw up, and just swats it away like it's an old fly. Get out of here.
2nd and 10. Ball on the 42 of Tampa. Kramer back. Complete to Anthony Carter for the 1st down. Carter run out of bounds by Ricky Reynolds, but Tommy Kramer looking impressive on his opening series for the Vikings here in the 2nd half.
Boy, he's putting some velocity on the football. Watch up at the top of your screen, 81. Anthony Carter's going to run an out route. As we said earlier, this is a tough route to throw because you've got to put some velocity on the ball. Tommy Kramer does that with no problem. AC gets out of bounds very quickly before anyone can get the hit on it.
Why was it tough before for Kramer to get some zip on that pass?
Well, he had a pinched nerve, and every time he threw the ball, he'd get that little tingling sensation down at the tips of his fingertips.
He's got the sensation going well now as Allen Rice takes it in the backfield. He gets back to the line of scrimmage and no more. Allen Rice stopped. Good defensive pursuit by the Buccaneers.
The other problem that Tommy Kramer had was that the forearm was cramping up because he was working so hard to try to get the thing back in shape. It happened right before the strike. All through the strike, he said he was going to chiropractors, acupuncturists, everything else to try to relieve that injury, and he was not able to do it effectively before they came back.
Out wide to the right, Leo Lewis to the left, Anthony Carter, 2nd and 10, ball on the 30. In motion. Kramer. And Kramer looking for Darren Nelson, had it batted down. And Ron Holmes, 6'4", 255, 3rd year out of Washington.
This is a 3-step drop by Kramer there, and now you see the ball's supposed to be gone right now. Ron Holmes separates himself, though, from Gary Zimmerman, number 65. Tough thing to do. 3-step drop. Generally, the offensive line is looking for a cut block on those defensive linemen to keep their hands down. And that time, Gary Zimmerman did not get it on Ron Holmes. Tough to get a cut block on a great defensive end, though.
Brings up an important 3rd and 10 situation for the Vikings. Ball on the 30. And way off sides is Winston Moss as Kramer airs it out anyway. But flags everywhere, and we'll wait for the official call.
The play was blown dead before the ball was snapped, and the reason why, James, was because number 57, Winston Moss, jumped across and was already committed.
Number 57.
And then the Vikings did the smart thing.
Number 57.
They snapped the ball while he was still across the line of scrimmage, killing the play. And Winston Moss gets caught in a little bit of a rookie mistake. He's out of the University of Miami. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, though. Steve DeBerg has been getting away with the hard snap count. Now Tommy Kramer comes back and uses it against the Bucs.
2 KGO veterans knowing exactly what to do. 3rd and 5. Ball on the 25 of the Bucs. Green package for the Vikings with 3 receivers in. Kramer going up top. And it's incomplete, but there's a flag on the play. The intended receiver was Anthony Carter, and Rod Jones, perhaps a little too close to coverage.
It was either Rod Jones or Ray Isom, number 28. Both of them were in on the play, and I believe Isom came along late and interfered with Carter's ability to catch the football.
Pass interference, number 22, 1st down.
And the call was against number 22, Rod Jones.
Rod Jones, tight man-on-man coverage with AC. Doesn't get a hand on him off the line of scrimmage. His first mistake. Now he allows him to in-move towards the post, comes back out towards the flag there, and now he's in his way. And Anthony does a smart thing. He makes sure the officials know that Jones is in his way. There you see it again. Now, AC knows he can't get to the football, but he's going to make sure there by reaching over the shoulders that, hey, this guy's in my way. He's preventing me from catching the ball.
So Minnesota with a big break. Ball on the 1. 1st and goal. In motion, Nelson. And the handoff to Rick Finney. And touchdown, Minnesota. So Rick Finney, the big fullback from Washington, takes it over for the first touchdown for Minnesota.
Tommy Kramer had a little difficult time there with the snap, but got it in time. They give it to Finney, and Finney does what every fullback is supposed to do. Just take the ball, put your head down, and take it in the end zone, and get a decent spike after you score.
Chuck Nelson with the point after. It's up, and it's good. So Chuck Nelson boots the Vikings out in front. They lead it in the third quarter, 13-7. Back here at the Metrodome in Minneapolis, where just less than a month ago the Minnesota Twins won the World Series, and although the Vikings are leading at 13-7, Danny, a quiet crowd.
Yeah, they may have a little bit of voice meter burnout up here. You're so used to screaming now, I think they're tired.
For a near capacity crowd here, saw Rick Finney score his first NFL touchdown, the rookie out of Washington. That put Minnesota ahead by the 6 points they enjoyed. Chuck Nelson will be kicking off back deep for the Bucks. Bobby Futrell. And it'll be Futrell on the 4. He's across the 10. He's across the 20 to the 30. Bobby Futrell near midfield, stopped at about the 46-yard line. Bobby Futrell before being stopped by Wyman Henderson.
James, on special teams, many times you can get a break if you set things up. Now, Bobby Futrell finds that wall, tucks in behind it, runs a little bit of a break out here, heads towards that sideline, and now watch, the only guy between him and the goal line is number 47, Browner. He gets taken out, but later on he gets stopped by some pursuit. A nice run back by Bobby Futrell. He stayed with the wall that was forming for him on his kickoff return team.
A 40-yard return by Bobby Futrell gives the Buccaneers good field position. They take over on their own 45. DeBerg, back to pass, complete to Carter, and Carter with first down yardage. There is a flag on the play. Joey Browner is on the stop.
James, J.D. Marleville, number 77, was getting extreme pressure from 56, Chris Dolman of the Vikings. I'm not sure if that's the call or not, but I know that's what forced Steve DeBerg to throw earlier than he wanted to.
Offside, number 86.
Well, the call is on Calvin McGee of the Buccaneers, so that will negate the first down pickup by Gerald Carter.
Watch Calvin McGee, number 86, at the top of your screen, and let's see if indeed he does move early. There you see the motion man Smith, number 35. Ball is snapped. Boy, that's a tough one. I can't see where he moved early.
Microsecond difference.
And it negates a great play, too, for the Buccaneers.
Makes it 1st and 15. Ball on the 40 of the Bucks. The handoff to Wilder, and Wilder, bullying straight ahead, gets back up near midfield. There is a flag on the play as John Harris and Joey Brown are right on the stop.
Holding number 60.
That's on Randy Grimes. And these are the kinds of things that when you start unraveling a little bit as an offensive line.
Other games taking place around the league today.
Grimes is a very unhappy fellow right about now. Steve DeBerg did compliment him very much on his play, though. He says he's been giving him a great deal of protection right up the middle.
Tampa Bay being hurt by penalties, 5 penalties, 49 yards. Minnesota 5 for 45. Bill Freeman wide to the left, Carter to the right. And DeBerg looking for Carter. He's got him complete at the 40-yard line before being stopped by Wyman Henderson. Let's check up in New York with Brent Musburger for this NFL update.
Well, James, we got an update on the Rams and the Cardinals. Rams pulled it within 3. Nolan Cromwell breaks in and blocks the punt. It rolls free into the end zone. Jerry Gray pounces on it, and it's 24-21 Cardinals. Let's go back to James.
And St. Louis with the game on their hands. The Rams, of course, operating without Eric Dickerson. They're within 3. Here it's 13-7 Minnesota. 2nd and 14. Ball on the 41 of the Buccaneers. DeBerg back to pass. Goes up top looking for Calvin McGee, but overthrows him. And DeBerg is still down on the field holding his right arm as he gets up gingerly.
He not only got up gingerly, he's hurting right about now. You can see him grimacing back there, and Vinny Testaverde, I'm sure, will start loosening up over on the Buccaneers sideline. Anytime your quarterback gets hit like that, you get a little bit concerned.
If you take a look at Vinny Testaverde, who was warming up in last week's game against the Cardinals, and many people felt that perhaps that was a bad signal that was sent to the rest of the team.
Well, many times in that situation, you feel that the game is over. You know, it's already out of hand, and you're thinking about putting in your replacement players and whatnot. Everybody takes it a little easy.
4 wideouts for the Bucs on 3rd and 14 on their own 41. DeBerg going up top, looking for Bruce Hill, and it's incomplete. And DeBerg was under all kinds of pressure from Keith Millard as he finds himself picking himself up off of the turf again.
Well, I hope his health insurance is paid up, because when he takes that deep drop, he gets a lot of pressure from the defensive line of the Vikings.
So Minnesota's defense does the job.
Well, one of the things that Floyd Peters, the defensive coordinator of the Vikings, is known for is making sure that all his defensive linemen run their stunts well, and they put immediate pressure on the quarterback. They've been able to do it today, even with the short drops of Steve DeBerg.
Frank Garcia with the super kick, driving Leo Lewis back to the 14, and Lewis knocked out of bounds at the 19-yard lines. So Minnesota will take over on their own 19. They lead it by 6 with 8:40 remaining in the third. So Minnesota takes over on their own 18-yard line with Tommy Kramer at the helm. And Danny, again, statistically, Wilson wasn't that bad in the first half. Why the change?
Well, maybe Jerry Burns felt that emotionally he needed that lift that Tommy Kramer could provide as a veteran quarterback.
And the pitch goes to Nelson. Nelson up to the 20-yard line before being driven back. And, of course, Kramer did pay dividends with the first touchdown for the Vikings, but Wilson, again, did not look that bad in the first half.
He really didn't, but, you know, Jerry Burns told us the other day that, hey, look, I can't afford to goof around now. We're in a critical position because we lost those 3 replacement games. We've got to win football games now, everyone down the line, and as a result, he can't take any chances. We're behind at halftime, switch up the quarterbacks, try something to make it happen for you.
Hassan Jones to the left. 2nd and 7, ball on the 21 of the Vikings. Kramer back to pass. Looking for Jones, and it's intercepted. Ray Isom still on his feet at the 20. Isom's got some daylight if he can stay on his feet. So Ray Isom in his first NFL start. Ray Perkins said he expected big things from this young man, and he got it in that play.
He saw Ron Heller, number 73, congratulating Ray Isom. They're both former Penn State players. First game, and he's going to take that ball back to Tampa Bay with him, believe me. Ray Isom steps in front of Hassan Jones, number 84. Top left-hand side of your screen. Tommy Kramer drops back, fires it. Now watch. Number 28, Ray Isom, read the play perfectly, intercepts the ball, and he takes off on a very nice run, gets a couple of key blocks. One there by number 22, Jones, makes a beautiful run back. Even Steve Jordan, 83, couldn't bring him down. And finally, he just kind of runs out of gas and stumbles to the turf.
A 29-yard return gives the Bucs the ball on the Vikings 14, 1st and 10. DeBerg back to pass. James Wilder out of the backfield, still on his feet. And Wilder scoots inside the 10-yard line down to about the 8.
Watch for the Vikings defense and what they do. Do they rise to the occasions? You get a look there at Ray Isom. He's a 3-year starter out of Penn State. But this is his first NFL game, and he makes it a high impact by intercepting a pass, a key pass from Tommy Kramer. What we're going to look for in the Vikings defense is, are they equal to the task now? Can they just force Tampa Bay to only get a field goal out of this situation?
2nd and 4, ball on the 8 of the Vikings. Smith in motion. DeBerg in the end zone, and a wide open Gerald Carter, but the ball was deflected by Joey Browner. And Carter couldn't have been any more open if he wanted to be.
No, somebody blew the coverage. One of the linebackers blew the coverage, but Joey Browner, playing center field like he's supposed to, great athletic ability, reaches up, leaps up, and slaps the ball away out of Gerald Carter's reach.
5th-year player out of USC, Joey Browner, 6'2", 217. Brings up a 3rd and 4 for the Buccaneers. In motion, Phil Freeman. DeBerg, back to pass. Going for Carter again. And a great defensive play. Give the credit to Carl Lee.
James, we said earlier that the Minnesota Vikings are an elite team in the NFL. This is what elite defenses do. When you get that easy breakdown there, they buckle up and they stop you and make you kick the field goal instead of getting the touchdown. There you see Carl Lee reaching in and preventing Gerald Carter from making the touchdown reception. A great play on defense.
So Donald Igwe-Buike will attempt a 26-yard field goal, and it's up. And it's good. So Igwe-Buike brings the Buccaneers to within 3 of the Vikings. 6:54 remaining in the third. We've got a close one. By Carl Lee forced the Buccaneers to settle for a field goal only.
Carl Lee down near the goal line, knows he doesn't have very much to work with in back of him, reaches over and makes an excellent defensive play, slapping the ball away from Gerald Carter, who's already in the end zone. The Buccaneers had to settle for the field goal, end result being they only have 10 points, whereas they probably should have 21 on the board.
And the score, 13-10, Vikings on top. 6:54 remaining in the third. Igwe-Buike kicking back deep. Guggemos takes it on his 3. He's across the 20 to the 30. And Neil Guggemos to the 40. Knocked out of bounds by Donald Igwe-Buike near midfield.
Neil Guggemos makes an excellent return. One of the things that he does that all good return men do, take the ball straight up the field. Now make your move once you get past that first set of tacklers. Now break to the sideline and get as much as you can and run over the kicker if you can, because the kicker should never stop your return man. But Iggy was up to the task. I'm sure most of the guys don't catch it with Guggemos because they can't believe his name is spelled that way.
Well, that return equaled the number on his jersey, a 41-yard return, one shy of his longest on the year of 42. Minnesota takes it over, 1st and 10, ball on the 44. Nelson across midfield to the 48-yard line. Darren Nelson. Let's check in with Brent Musburger in New York for an NFL update.
Well, James, back in your old hometown, Washington, the Lions have moved to within a touchdown of the Skins. Chuck Long's pass set up this sprint to the corner by Carl Bernard. 7 points now, 2013. Back to James.
And as you well know, there was a quarterback controversy in Washington. Many people feeling that Doug Williams should have started in place of Jay Schrader, who had 2 poor games. But they've got to get their act together, down, or rather up by only 7. 2nd and 2 here. Minnesota with the ball on the Tampa Bay 48. In motion, Lewis. And the handoff to Finney. And Rick Finney gets up to the 40-yard line of Tampa Bay, having himself an outstanding game thus far.
Now, what do you do if you're Minnesota? You're up by a few points. Now you want to have an effective drive, a time-killing drive, so you start handing that ball off to guys like number 31, Rick Finney. He makes the most of whatever is up front, gets some good, strong yardage on the play, but also he helps burn up that clock. 5:37 left in the third quarter.
Why would he want to lose any weight? He's strong at that weight.
Lose that weight, you might lose your job.
1st and 10 for the Vikes. Ball on the 40 of the Bucs. The handoff to Nelson. And Nelson trying to turn the corner, but Irvin Randall with good pursuit stops him at about the 39-yard line.
In talking about Irvin Randall, yesterday he told us after the loss to the St. Louis Cardinals last week that he was so embarrassed that he couldn't even come out of his house and face his neighbors. He has nothing to be embarrassed about, though, when he makes plays like this. He just tracks down Darren Nelson, number 20, and makes the key play.
Only a 3rd-year player out of Baylor, and Coach Ray Perkins says this young man certainly has all-pro potential.
And he reminds me so much of Mike Singletary. It's just ridiculous. A lot like him in terms of his play.
Green package for the Vikings. Leo Lewis in motion. 2nd and 11. Darren Nelson. And he's got the first down. Darren Nelson inside the 20. And it was Irvin Randall again on the stop.
You see a little play action fake there. Statue back to Darren Nelson. The offensive line set it up beautifully, gave him a lot of blocks downfield, and Darren Nelson does the rest. If it weren't for Irvin Randall, Darren Nelson would be in the end zone right now celebrating. Now watch Irvin Randall, number 54, catch up with Darren, catches him from behind and puts him down on the ground. That's the kind of play you expect from a guy you say is going to be an all-pro one day.
A 23-yard pickup gives the Vikes the ball on the Buccaneers' 18-yard line, 1st and 10. And the handoff to Rice. And Rice roped up by Irvin Randall. Randall at 6'1", 250 pounds, showed all kinds of speed in catching the much smaller Darren Nelson at only 5'9", 189.
One of the things that's happened in college football is they have started to develop great linebackers. And as Jerry Burns was talking to us yesterday, he said one of the problems they are having is that the colleges are not developing great defensive linemen. Everybody's being moved to that linebacking spot, kind of reminiscent of the Lawrence Taylors. But you find somebody like a Randall, you've got to keep that guy healthy and keep him around.
Pickup of 2, 2nd and 8, ball on the 16. In motion, Leo Lewis. Kramer dishes back to Finney. Finney inside the 10, still on his feet. And the Bull, Rick Finney, drives his way down close to the 6-yard line.
And I saw something else I liked in that play. Deep down there, late in the run, you're going to see number 72, Dave Huffman, come down and throw another key block. There he gets one, and now he's going for that second one. He's going to help his fullback out. Don't let those guys hit my running backs. Just keep going downfield and keep that pressure towards the goal line.
Coach Jerry Burns has a lot of weapons to use in that backfield, and he's got 167 yards thus far out of a strong tandem back there. Ball on the 8. The handoff to Nelson. And Nelson driving straight ahead, close to the 6-yard line. And would this not be an emotional boost for Kramer if he can drive his team to a 2nd touchdown?
Well, especially after throwing the interception and the Ray Isom interception. Tommy needs this for an emotional lift, as well as the rest of the Vikings team. He knows it. He knows this is a critical time for him. You put it in here, and suddenly you're starting to put that game out of reach going into the 4th quarter.
Ball is marked on the 5. 2nd and goal. In motion, Lewis. Kramer. Handoff to Nelson. Nelson down to about the 2-yard line. Flags on the play. Scott Brantley on the stop.
Holding, number 72, 2nd down.
That call against David Huffman.
Dave's out of Notre Dame, was a former 2nd-round draft choice of the Vikings. Left there, went to the USFL, and then came back. Now watch on the bottom side of your screen, number 72 there, Dave Huffman gets his man on a hard rush, knows he's got to react very quickly, and there you see the grab right there in the middle of your screen, and Dave's probably going to throw him to the ground, and that's what always gets you that holding penalty.
Certainly a badge of courage must go to Kirk Loudermilk, who was injured in the 1st quarter, and he's still in there playing on that injured leg of his.
Well, centers are tough guys anyway. They're always tough guys. Anybody that snaps a ball 70 times a game has got to be tough.
2nd and goal, ball on the 15, and Rice is tripped up in the backfield as he tries to scoot forward, and you hear a smattering of boos from the crowd here in the Metrodome.
You know, 2nd down and long yardage, I can understand them being a little upset. You would hope that your offensive team would go to the end zone, as they failed to do the last time they were down in this position. They didn't go to the end zone, take it back to the deep part of that end zone, and give yourself an opportunity to get to 6 points.
Big play for the Vikings. 3rd and goal, ball on the 14. And running across into the backfield of the Vikings for the Bucks is John Cannon, number 78 in white.
He looked good doing it, didn't he?
He brought down number 78. 3rd down.
John Cannon is one of the more muscled up defensive linemen in the league. And here you see him make a nice move on the nose tackle. But the only problem, I mean, on the center, the only problem was the ball wasn't snapped yet.
That inches Minnesota closer by 5.
It gives them back 5 for that original 10 that they got penalized on. Now they can go to the back of the end zone. Let's see if they try to score.
That makes it 3rd and goal, ball on the 9. 15 seconds remaining in the 3rd. Kramer out of the shotgun with the green package. Intended receiver was Rick Finney, incomplete, and there is a flag on the play.
James, is still 3rd down, 9 yards to go, and they're thrown to the backs out. on the flat. I can't understand how come
Outside, number 84.
Why don't you go to those wide receivers?
Outside, number 84.
Let's see what the wide receivers were indeed doing. Hassan Jones, number 84. Let's watch him, see what he does. Takes a step before the snap, and that's the reason for the penalty. Just a little bit downfield. Little mistakes down here are starting to really hurt the Vikings.
So the Vikings inside the 20 having all kinds of difficulty. The ball moved back to the 14-yard line.
And Jerry Burns is not a guy that you would have leading the choir practice right about now.
Not at all. The players know it. And there's still some discussion going on down on the field.
As soon as the officials figure out what the deal is, we'll try to get it back to our viewers. I think what the Buccaneers did was decline the penalty, so that brings up a 4th down situation, and now you're going to see the Minnesota Vikings attempt the field goal.
Chuck Nelson will be attempting the field goal. The penalty indeed was refused on that incomplete pass, and Chuck Nelson will attempt a 26-yard field goal with Greg Coleman holding. It's up, and it's good. So Chuck Nelson gives the Vikings a 6-point pad. They lead at 16-10 with 3 seconds remaining in the third. Along with Dan Jiggets, I'm James Brown, coming to you from the Metrodome here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the Vikings enjoy a 6-point lead over the Buccaneers, 16-10. 3 seconds remaining in the third quarter.
James, one of the strange things about being here in Minnesota in November, we're out of the Vikings practice yesterday, and most of the players were in shorts at 60 degrees.
And they were most appreciative. And Nelson with a low drive. And Jeff Smith lets it go back to the end zone. And Tampa Bay will start the fourth quarter from their own 20-yard line. So that's the end of the third quarter with the score, the Vikings 16, the Bucs 10. We now pause for a word from your local station.
CBS Sports coverage of the National Football League is sponsored by Cadillac Motor Car Company. Discover why the only way to travel is Cadillac style. Schick, maker of Schick Plus disposable and Super 2 Plus blades for the easy touch. And by RCA, the most trusted name in electronics.
15 minutes of action remaining in this NFC Central Division battle between the Buccaneers and the Vikings. And a flag on the play as DeBerg airs it out, going for Phil Freeman. But Carl Lee was step for step with him as he bats it away, but there was a flag on the play.
Lloyd Peters, as I mentioned earlier, the defensive coordinator of the Vikings, told us that he knows that Doug Martin is very jumpy on that defensive line. Steve DeBerg is consistently pulling them off with that hard count. And sooner or later, these officials are going to make a decision that Steve is indeed abusing the privilege.
Offside, number 79, first down.
Danny, Martin is an 8th-year player. Why would somebody with that kind of experience have a problem with jumping off sides?
Defensive ends like to get that strong, fast upfield rush, especially when they know they're playing against a team that likes to pass 90% of the time. So Doug is just concentrating on getting off the football. They get into that rhythm of hearing that snap count, set, hut, and then all of a sudden it's set, hut, and then you miss that first count, and suddenly you're gone, and you're offside.
Take a look at Floyd Peters, the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. Looks like he can still play now. 1st and 5 for the Bucs. Ball on their own 25. And the handoff to Smith.
James, up to that point, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had run 38 plays, 32 were passes, and 7 rushes.
And Smith that time might have picked up a few inches only. Minnesota's had their share of difficulties today. 5 injuries in the game. Kirk Loudermilk is back in there. And when we were away for that timeout and that commercial break, Reggie Rutland was being helped off as DeBerg goes back to pass on 2nd down. And Scott Studwell thought he had himself an interception, but he didn't. And his teammates, Scott Studwell's teammates, talk glowingly about him.
Yeah, they say with Scott, you don't turn your back on him because he's going to hit somebody on the play, and it might very well be his own man. Here, right in the middle of your screen, Scott steps in front of Gerald Carter, I believe that was number 87, and he has an interception if he can just develop some hands.
Jesse Solomon said Scott Studwell is not the kind of player you want to get in on a blitz with. 3rd and 5, ball on the 25 for the Buccaneers. DeBerg, and he was under all kinds of pressure by Joey Browner, but there's a flag on the play.
Joey Browner came in rolling on a strong safety blitz.
And it looks like they're calling grounding.
Intentional grounding, but they'll probably refuse the penalty because now they get the punt.
Number 17, lost it down, 4th down.
Excuse me, his automatic loss of down on downing the football as Steve DeBerg did. Tampa Bay comes in for the punt. Frank Garcia back to do it.
So Frank Garcia on the punt. He gets a good one away. Leo Lewis takes it on the 45. He's to the 40. Leo's got some daylight and run out of bounds at the 24-yard line by Don Anderson. So Leo Lewis brings the crowd to life here in the Metrodome with a strong return.
Minnesota's had success all day running back kickoffs and punts, and this is the reason why. A guy like a Leo Lewis knows how to get that yardage out. He fakes out number 50, Dan Turk, first man down the field, and now he heads for his wall, makes a nice move there, and gets as much as he can, and he gets caught by a punter.
Lewis's 29-yard return gives the Vikings excellent field position. Ball at the Bucks 25, 1st and 10. Kramer, the handoff to Nelson, and Nelson pulls ahead for a pickup of about 4. Ron Holmes on the stop for the Buccaneers.
James, the one thing I don't understand about Minnesota offensively, the offensive coordinator Bob Snelker told us that he was going to try to go for that end zone when he got down in scoring territory. They really haven't done that. They've gone back to that same kind of passing game where you throw it to the backs out of the backfield when you get down inside the 20. I think that they've got to go to their wide receivers and tight end down in close and try to score instead of just trying to work the ball towards the goal line.
Call a pickup of 3, make it 2nd and 7. Ball on the 22. And flags everywhere. It'll be interesting to see who pulled whom that time.
Well, I think what happened was
Cross start, 71-72.
the Vikings had Steve Jordan, number 83, in a flex position. Wanted to audible, bring him back in tight. When he did that, sometimes the linemen forget that the snap count moves from 1 to 2 when you audible.
David Huffman and Mark McDonald, the guilty parties at time. And Danny, we just got word that Dennis Swilly, the backup center for the Vikings, suffered a broken leg. So talk about a hard luck season for him. Loses his starting position to Kirk Loudermilk because of an ankle injury and surgery, and now he's out with a broken leg. 2nd and 12 for the Vikings. Ball on the Buccaneer 27. 13 minutes remaining in the 4th quarter. To Nelson, the ball carrier. Back across the 25 to about the 24. Stopped by Chris Washington.
James, one of the things that happens on plays inside like that, if you don't block that outside weak linebacker, Chris Washington, number 51, now watch him come from the top of your screen. You've got to block that guy. He comes down. He's so fast, he's able to make the stop before Darren Nelson can get across the line of scrimmage. Those are the kinds of plays that outside linebackers are supposed to make, but they have to have exceptional athletic ability.
Chris Washington, 4th-year player out of Iowa State, brings up a 3rd and 9 situation. And Tommy Kramer doesn't like what he sees, so he calls a timeout. An important 3rd down situation indeed for the Vikings.
Years ago, when we used to play the Buccaneers and Leroy Selman was on that left side, that's one of the things that he always used to do, is break down that line of scrimmage and catch your back before you get out of the backfield.
And the Vikings trying to add to their 6-point lead. They'll come back at it after this message.
This is where the fun starts.
So Tommy Kramer has come on in the second half to lead the Vikings to 2 touchdowns, and they lead it by 6 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Danny, as you take a look at Tampa Bay, only 9 yards rushing in. You again mentioned that perhaps their play selection should go more towards the running game.
Well, the one problem is you don't burn up the clock at all. You don't play ball possession. So if you don't get the first downs, suddenly you give the ball back to the Vikings, and they are able to take the ball down because they run the football and burn up some of the clock.
Rick Finney certainly has looked outstanding for the Vikings. He came in with that third quarter score.
And that's what you want that big fullback to do, just take it across, power it across the goal line, and like I said before, get a decent spike after you do it.
So another scoring opportunity for the Vikings here on 3rd down and 9. Ball on the 24 of the Bucks. Kramer looking deep, looking for Leo Lewis. And Lewis, it's incomplete. Lewis was looking for the bump, but Bobby Futrell with good coverage.
Bobby Futrell was playing the football, and that's how come he didn't get the call, the interference call. There you see him right on the right side of your screen. Bobby Futrell has just as much right to the football as Leo Lewis, and he plays the position perfectly on that play.
So that brings on Chuck Nelson to attempt the field goal, try to pad the lead to 9 points. It'll be a 42-yard field goal attempt by Chuck Nelson. It's up. And it's no good.
James, I think that ball was tipped. It sounded like the ball was tipped on the field goal attempt.
Well, be that as it may, Chuck Nelson does not convert on a 42-yard field goal attempt.
Watch in the middle of the screen. Does someone get a hand on this ball? Indeed, I believe they do, and I think it might have been number 90, Ron Holmes. Watch right in the middle of the line of scrimmage and see if number 90, Ron Holmes, gets that hand up late and just gets a finger on the ball enough to send it off course and out of scoring position. Boy, it looks like he got a finger. I don't know, though. We can't really tell from the replay.
So that gives it to Tampa Bay. Ball on their own 24. DeBert under pressure, fumbles. Picked up by Keith Millard. And Millard with the fumble recovery gives the Vikings the ball inside the 10. I guess all of you linemen love to get a hold of that ball.
Watch the left side of the screen. Marvin Powell, number 74, working against Chris Dolman. He pushes Marvin into Steve DeBerg and then makes the sack. A great play by Chris Dolman. And now you see Millard pick the ball up and try to run with it, but defensive lineman can't run the football back to the end zone. Great play by Chris Dolman, number 56, and an excellent fumble recovery. The second one for Keith Millard today.
Minnesota on the 8-yard line of the Bucks. Golden scoring opportunity. Leo Lewis in motion. And the handoff goes to Allen Rice. And Rice, with a good second effort, gets inside the 5 before being stopped by Winston Moss and Irvin Randall.
Marvin Powell came in for J.D. Marlaville on the left side. Marvin Powell, for 10 out of his 11 years, has played right tackle. The adjustment to left tackle is a very difficult one for anybody at best, particularly for an all-pro who had played on the other side of the line. Caused him big problems there. Chris Dolman was able to get in, get the sack, and cause the fumble.
Brings up a 2nd and goal. Ball on the 4-yard line for the Vikings. 11:24 remaining in the contest. Tommy Kramer with the handoff to the second back, Darren Nelson, and a late flag. And that'll hurt Tampa Bay. The initial signal, face mask against the Buccaneers. And that, of course, will be an automatic first down.
Face mask, number 54, 2nd down.
As Fred Wyant calls the guilty party, Irvin Randall, as Ray Perkins looks on.
Watch in the middle of your screen. Look for number 54, and does he indeed commit the infraction or grab the face mask? I don't believe he did. I think that someone else came across the top. I can't see the number right from here, but someone else came across and actually put a hand on the face mask.
Ball on the 2. Kramer Rolling right, looking for Steve Jordan. Touchdown, Minnesota. So Steve Jordan, the 6-year pro out of Brown University, hauls in the touchdown pass from Tommy Kramer. And Chuck Nelson will come on to attempt the point after. And Nelson's point after is good as Minnesota moves out in front by 13. They lead it 23-10. As you get another look at it, Steve Jordan on the receiving end.
Steve Jordan, a nice clean release down on the goal line. Tommy Kramer lofts it up deep to him in the end zone, something they should have been doing before. He makes the touchdown. And there he goes out of style. Out in style, Steve Jordan, 83. We'll be back in a minute. Score 23-10.
When the Giants meet Randall Cunningham and the Eagles, while the surprising Saints take on the 49ers. Coming up next.
So Tommy Kramer with his first touchdown pass today, finding Steve Jordan to put his team on top by 23-10. As Chuck Nelson with a low squibber taken on the 15-yard line, and Tampa Bay will start from about their own 26-yard line.
Ray Perkins is going to reach deep into that playbook now. He's got to find not only some plays that will move the football team down the field, but some scoring plays, some successful scoring plays. For the last 3 weeks, Tampa Bay has fallen apart in the fourth quarter. Ray Perkins knows that, hey, now if we're down, we're not ahead in the fourth quarter, we've really got to do something.
And it looked as if Ray Perkins was down near the bottom of that play sheet. 1st and 10, ball on the 27 of the Buccaneers. 1st and 10, Jeff Smith in motion. DeBerg back to pass. Across the middle, complete to his big tight end, Calvin McGee. Dallas leading New England 14-10. And the Lions still within a touchdown of the Redskins. That game being played in the nation's capital, Houston. Warren Moon with a 14-yard touchdown pass to Curtis Duncan and a 42-yarder to Drew Hill. They lead it over Pittsburgh, trying to break that three-way tie in the AFC Central. 2nd and 6 here. Ball on the 31 of the Bucks. DeBerg back to pass, looking for McGee. He's got him at midfield, and Calvin McGee finding his way into the open areas, giving the Bucks a first down at midfield, stopped by John Harris.
And it appeared on that play that John Harris had a hold of Calvin McGee's face mask. Right side of your screen, number 86, the tight end Calvin McGee comes across on a cross route. Now let's see if John Harris, number 44, indeed does reach up and grab Calvin McGee on the face mask. Well, he's got his arm across his face, but he makes a nice play. John Harris, the second leading receiver, interceptor in the NFC. Active interceptor in the NFC.
1st and 10, ball at midfield. DeBerg looked to be in the grass before he threw the ball to Jeff Smith, as Doug Martin comes away with the sack. As a matter of fact, last week Doug Martin had 2 sacks against the Raiders.
James, what happened on the play was Doug Martin got the sack early. Indeed, the official said Steve DeBerg, number 17, was in the grasp of number 79, Doug Martin. Ruled the play dead. Even though Steve was able to complete the ball was blown dead right there. Steve throws the ball late, but again, people complain about quarterbacks getting hurt. The officials say, hey, look, the play was dead.
Smith in motion, 2nd and 19. Ball on the 41 for the Buccaneers. Going for Gerald Carter. He's got him. And a great catch by Gerald Carter, who fumbled the ball, but had the presence of mind to still hang on.
There's a flag on the play. Chris Dolman says bring it back. But let's find out what happened downfield anyway. Watch number 87, Gerald Carter, right in the middle of the screen. He makes a great reception there. He's got a little problem holding on to it, but he finds the handle and makes the reception, but it's all for naught. It's coming back. I believe it was a holding penalty against the offensive line of the Buccaneers. You have to give Marvin Powell a little bit of a break there, number 74, starting at the left tackle for the Buccaneers. Marvin, as I said earlier, is a right tackle. One of the most difficult adjustments to make on the offensive line is to move from that right tackle to the left side, where you're working on the blind side of the quarterback, and you're getting a speed rusher on that side.
It's at 2nd and 29 for the Buccaneers. Ball on their own 31. And a flag on the play as Chris Dolman wraps up Steve DeBerg. But there is a flag on the play.
There was movement before the ball was snapped.
Offside, number 75, 2nd down.
Keith Millard.
Chris Dolman says, oh, gee, I had my sack. You know, it reminds me so much of what Floyd Peters used to do when he was at Detroit with Bubba Baker in his finest years. Always put him on that left side, hard upfield rusher. Chris Dolman built in the same kind of mold. Just rush him upfield hard to the quarterback and keep that pressure on the quarterback. He knows that that defensive end is closing in on his backside.
Penalties have slowed both of these units in terms of trying to score. Tampa Bay, 9 penalties. Penalty calls for 66 yards. Minnesota, 9 for 70. Brings up a 2nd and 24. Ball on the Buccaneer 36. 8:11 remaining in the contest. 4 wideouts in for DeBerg. DeBerg going up top for Bruce Hill. And it's incomplete. Actually, the intended receiver was Mark Carrier, as DeBerg not able to get into his rhythm passing game.
I think Steve's a little shaken up right now. You know, he's got hit a couple of times on successive plays. And every once in a while, that throws a quarterback off. He's not quite sure if he's going to be able to stand in there and get it downfield like he wants to. As a result, he throws the ball before he's really prepared to. Steve does the smart thing here. He calls a timeout, tries to get himself reset, give the offense a little bit of time to settle down. Critical time now, 3rd down, 24 yards to go. 8 minutes, 4 seconds remaining on the clock. If the Buccaneers are going to try to win this game, they've got to get a score on this drive.
3rd and 24 it will be. And DeBerg, talking about that humiliating loss last week to the St. Louis Cardinals, understands that he's got a young squad that he's working with, but he says, hey, it's not time to grow up. I'm already grown up. I want to win. And this is the first game of a doubleheader Sunday here on CBS. Coming up next, some of you will see the New York Giants taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Others will see the Green Bay Packers and talk about a noisy place up in Seattle, the Kingdome.
And I think that Seattle team may be one of the finest teams in the AFC. I fully expect to see Seattle in the Super Bowl. It'll be interesting to see how Green Bay does against them, because you look at that Central Division race, how that all shapes up. They can surprise Seattle. They're back in the hunt. I see J.D. Marleveld, number 77, is back in the game at left tackle. Marvin Powell just could not make that adjustment over there, particularly if you haven't been playing there for a while. Believe me, I know it's tough.
Why so tough? It would seem to be just a matter of subtle differences.
Well, if you're not left-handed, it's completely using the opposite side, the weak side of your body, to pass protect.
3rd and 24. Ball on the 36 of the Buccaneers. 4 wideouts in. DeBerg under pressure again. Goes up top looking for Phil Freeman, and he's got it. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. A 64-yard touchdown pass play from Steve DeBerg to Phil Freeman.
And look at Phil, he's out of breath now. He's got to go back and get on the oxygen tank. He's been out for a couple of weeks with a hamstring pull, and I'm sure he's not used to running 67 yards.
Donald Igwe-Buike in for the point after. And it's good. So Tampa Bay, with that 64-yard strike, draws within 6 of the Minnesota Vikings.
The U.S. Army. Randall Cunningham and Greg Garrity are teaming up to key the Eagles' drive for the playoffs. In the last 2 weeks, they have snatched victory in the final seconds over division rivals. First versus St. Louis. And then in even more dramatic fashion against the Redskins. Cunningham and Garrity, individually they're good. As teammates, they strive to be the best they can be.
Apache, There's nothing hotter in the air or on the ground for Jack Holt, Army crew chief.
The Apache's got advanced everything, like a TV for target acquisition. The gunner aims just by moving his head. Talk about hot. This bird can make tracks at 200 miles an hour. Now that's cool. No, that's hot. Find your future in the Army.
Buccaneer gives us a ball game, Danny.
Steve DeBerg pulls out. A little bit of pressure. He sidesteps that. A little dipsy-do there. Now he goes down on the streak route. There's Phil Freeman, number 81. He outruns Wayne Smith, and goes in for the score. Phil Freeman, 6 points. He's so tired he can't even celebrate that good after he makes the touchdown.
Well, he had enough energy to get up for the spike that time. Phil Freeman, of course, who was out with a hamstring pull, but reclaimed his starting position, and Tampa Bay is glad of it. So Donald Igwe-Buike will be kicking off back deep to Neil Gugamos, who last time out had a 41-yard return. A back-and-forth ball game, Danny.
Yeah, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have done something they haven't done in the past. That is, they started closing the gap in the fourth quarter instead of opening the gap.
Gugamos takes it on his 5, across the 15, up to the 26-yard line. Neil Gugamos. So a back-and-forth ball game. Steve DeBerg driving his team to within 6. And Tommy Kramer in the second half has his team on top by 6. We've got a good game here. So Minnesota will take over with the ball on their own 26-yard line. They lead at 23-17, 7:46 remaining in the contest. And the fourth quarter is where Tampa Bay's defense has had problems. The toss goes to Darren Nelson, and Nelson runs into a horde of white shirts led by Ricky Reynolds, and Tampa, accustomed to having the lead in the fourth quarter and having problems. Question now is, can they come from behind?
A young team facing a challenge now. They haven't been in this position very much in the fourth quarter. Ray Perkins has to be over there setting it up on that sideline, saying, okay, now your backs are against the wall in the fourth quarter. What kind of character do you have? Do you stop them on the critical third down play, get the ball back to our offense, and give them a chance to take the ball in and score and put us back in this football game? Or do you fold up in the fourth quarter?
Perkins said he was looking for leadership from the defense, someone on the defense.
Guys like John Cannon and Bobby Kemp have got to step up and say, hey, look, this is when we stop them.
Kramer back on 2nd and 7, under pressure. Complete to Rick Finney, and Finney across the 30 to about the 34-yard line, shy of the first down yardage by about a yard or two. Ray Isom on the stop.
Credit Scott Brantley with making an exceptional play on here. Screen pass, you're going to see number 52 Brantley read the play, but he's got McDonald 71 out there trying to block him and knock him to the ground, and also has a hold of his jersey. Scott slows up Finney just enough and trips him up late and makes the stop. And Scott is down on the ground right now. It appears that he may be injured, and Tampa Bay very shortly will be running out of linebackers.
Rick Finney doing an excellent job coming off the bench as you take a look at Scott Brantley leaving the field. And Danny, again, a wild card playoff spot in the mix for these teams.
Critical ball game because, again, you go back to the tiebreaker system. Only 15 games being played this year. Head-to-head competition is one of the keys to that tiebreaker system. And Minnesota has already lost 1 game to Tampa Bay during the replacement season.
A big third down play for the Vikings. 3rd and 5. Ball on their own 31. The gold package, 4 wideouts in for the Vikings. And Kramer hands off to Finney, and Finney goes nowhere. A flag on the play. Chris Washington and Ron Holmes in on the stop. And that goes against Minnesota.
Blocking from behind on the Minnesota Vikings. I noticed one thing that happened with the Tampa Bay defense. Ordinarily, they have those inside linebackers set off the ball by 5 yards. This play, they had them only 2 yards off the ball.
They have a personal foul, illegal crackback against number 80, declined, 4th down.
Brings up a punting situation for Minnesota. Greg Coleman in to punt, the 11-year vet out of Florida A&M. Back deep for Minnesota. Make that Tampa Bay, Bobby Futrell.
Greg Coleman said that punting in this dome adds 5 yards onto your average.
And Futrell on the 28. Tries to turn a corner. He's heading upfield across the 40. And run out of bounds by Joey Browner, just shy of midfield.
James, sometimes on the punts, and it's easy to get in trouble here. Now watch number 56, Jackie Walker. He can't block 47, Joey Browner. So what does he do? He kind of sticks out that foot and trips him a little bit, and then he's able to spring his running back, Bobby Futrell, for a nice gain on the punt return. Excuse me, it wasn't Joey Browner they tripped, because that's Joey Browner throwing Bobby Futrell there. I believe it was 31. Gordon Solomon, Sonny Gordon.
Along with Dan Jiggets, I'm James Brown coming to you from the Metrodome. We've got an exciting game on hand here. Minnesota leading at 23-17. 6 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter.
Buccaneers desperate for a score here, have got to get down and get 6 points on this drive.
And the crowd coming to life, trying to cheer on the defense. DeBerg back to pass, finds Jeff Smith across the middle, and Smith with a pickup of about 8 yards down to the 35-yard line.
Key for the Buccaneers here is don't get greedy. Just keep chipping away at it. Gradually work your way down the field and then go for the big strike, get into the end zone, and get another touchdown out of this drive.
And make that to about the 47-yard line. It'll be 2nd and 2. Ball will be marked on the 43. 2nd and 2 for the Buccaneers. Ball on the 43 of the Vikings. DeBerg, the handoff to Smith. Smith's got the first down and more. Jeff Smith, the ball carrier, as he gives Tampa Bay a first down.
Jeff Smith's going to get a nice lead block here from number 66, George Yarno there now. He leads him up into the hole. Can't find anybody there. Now turn upfield, George, and get the first block he can find on Jesse Sullivan, number 54, but give your running back room to run.
1st and 10, ball on the 37 of the Vikings. In motion, Jeff Smith. DeBerg. Intercepted. Wyman Henderson. And the ball came loose, but the official signals that the play was dead.
Ron Heller recovered what he thought was the fumble, but apparently it was the play was blown dead before Ron got to the ball. Steve DeBerg drops back, throws into coverage, should not have thrown this ball. He knows it, everyone in the stadium knows it. Nice clean interception there, and a nice run back by Wyman Henderson. He makes a good little spin move there, and now as he goes to the ground, the ball rolls out. Indeed, it does look like a fumble. That is a fumbled football, and I believe that the officials are reviewing it. Ron Heller recovered the fumble.
And Danny, as you indicated, that play is being reviewed because from that angle, it looked as if the ball had come loose before.
Well, they say that the ground can't cause the fumble, and it didn't in this case. Wyman Henderson was hit and released the ball before his knees hit the turf. Now here he comes on the run back. Now let's see if we can see that ball pop out just before his knees hit the ground. And in that case, it is a fumble, and Ron Heller recovered it. Right there is when that ball starts coming out. There you see the hand on the ball, and out it comes, and Ron Heller recovers. Here's another look at it. There's the ball coming out, and now you see Heller closing in on it. These are the kinds of plays where they say, well, the officials in the replay booth say, well, we couldn't conclusively conclude that he indeed fumbled the ball before his knees hit the ground. It's a tough call for them to make, but they've got to make this one. I already made it. I said that he fumbled the ball.
We'll see if Mark Burns agrees with you. And it's just been ruled that it's Minnesota's ball. And there's one man who certainly relieved.
That was a reversal. The whistle had blown. The ball is here.
That sounds like an escape hatch to me.
So the whistle had blown, and that certainly made the play dead. So Wyman Henderson's interception stands, and Minnesota takes it over. Ball on their own 42. Leo Lewis in motion. The handoff to Darren Nelson. Nelson across the 40 to the 50. And Darren Nelson stopped by Chris Martin, but not before getting close to first down yardage. And Danny, let's take a look at that controversial play one more time.
James, the officials say that the whistle had blown, but on the replay, you can't hear the whistle, and it's clear that what they were looking at was whether or not he had dropped the ball before his knees hit the ground. And for them to come back and say that the whistle had already blown is ludicrous. There you see Ron Heller recovering the fumbled football. It should be Tampa Bay ball. First down.
Well, Ray Perkins doing a good job of at least containing his emotions.
Better than I am.
Well, his defense will have to rise to the challenge. They have 4:16 remaining in the contest. Tampa Bay trails by 6 points. And we'll have a measurement. And first down for Minnesota. So Minnesota keeps their drive alive. And Danny, that could very well be a big play in that the replay officials overruled.
They overruled. They said that the ball indeed should have gone to the ball should have been Tampa Bay's because of the fumble, but the officials on the field said that the whistle had already blown the play dead before the change of possession and the fumble. So no play. Minnesota Vikings have the football, and they're on a drive trying to close this game out with a score here.
Could be a big call indeed. 3:52 remaining. First down and 10. Ball on the 48 of Tampa Bay. Kramer, the handoff to Finney. And Finney, as he's been doing all afternoon, bulling straight ahead as he gets it down near the 40-yard line.
And Anthony Carter is mixing it up with Ray Ison down there. Anthony's smart enough to pick on somebody his own size.
New England leading Dallas by 3. That game in the fourth quarter. And Houston with Warren Moon leading the way. That's a final. They beat Pittsburgh 23-3. Cleveland by 13 over Buffalo. That one in the fourth quarter. Kansas City trailing by 7, and the Jets make that a final. New York Jets have won it, so they now lead the AFC with a 5-4 record. And Indianapolis, maybe Eric Dickerson doing a better job this week.
An offensive juggernaut.
2nd and 4. Ball on the 42. Straight ahead, Allen Rice. And Rice is driven back. But the key here, Danny, ball control.
Ball control, and the whole key going back to that key fumble that I called down here about on the 50-yard line. Tampa Bay should have had the ball back. Now we're coming down, closing in on 2 minutes in the game, and Minnesota's driving the football. All they've got to do now is play ball control, as you said, James. Hold on to that football and run the clock out.
And Ray Perkins, of course, searching for answers all week last week, as well as the previous 2 in terms of his team blowing big leads, but he knows he's got a young squad. Minnesota right now, 3rd and 1. Ball on the 39 of Tampa. Darren Nelson. And he's got the speed. First down and more. And Darren Nelson takes his team into first down territory at the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter.
Here we go. Darren Nelson outside gets a nice block from 71 McDonald. He heads outside around the corner. Now he puts that nice move there on Ricky Reynolds. Another one on 2 defensive backs. They had to put on the brakes and try to fall back to make the stop.
So Minnesota will have 2 minutes to try and control the ball and hold on to a 6-point lead. To a 6-point lead with 2 minutes remaining in the contest, looking to move to 5-4. Dan Jigges, the question, does Tampa have enough time and timeouts left to do it?
Well, what they've got to do right here is they've got to force Minnesota to try to kick a field goal. Don't give them any more yardage, because if you do, you're in big trouble down here.
1st and 10 for the Vikings. Rick Finney, the ball carrier, across the 30, straight ahead to about the 26-yard line. Rick Finney.
Tampa Bay called the timeout. They've burned 1. They've got 2 left.
Coming up tonight on CBS, he may go into the history books as the typhoid Mary of AIDS. Watch 60 Minutes tonight on CBS. Following 60 Minutes is Murder, She Wrote, starring Angela Lansbury. And then the CBS movie, The True Story of Sidney Biddle Barrows, The Mayflower Madam, starring Candice Bergen. That's all coming up tonight, right here on CBS.
Sounds like a tough night.
I was about to say, talk about a euphonic ring. Sidney Biddle Barrows. So Tommy Kramer coming on in the second half to lead the Vikings. Engineered 2 touchdown drives for them, and they enjoy a 6-point lead.
You think about how come you pay a guy like Tommy Kramer over $1 million. This is why he comes into the game, does what he's got to do to make you a winner. Replacing this man, Wade Wilson, number 11, who really wasn't doing that badly in the first half, but they were behind. And Jerry Burns told us that he is not going to let this team fall out of playoff contention. They've got to do whatever they can to win the football games that they have remaining, and that's what they're doing today.
And Wade Wilson understands that quite well. 2nd and 7, ball on the 26 of the Buccaneers. The handoff goes to Finney again, and Finney continuing to drive straight ahead. Rick Finney's getting an awful lot of work today, stopped that time by Ron Holmes.
James, this is the critical area now. Minnesota's moved into field goal territory. If indeed they don't successfully get down in the end zone and score the 6, they get the 3 points. The game is still out of reach for the Buccaneers because they've got to get a touchdown and a field goal to get back in the game or get ahead.
And remember, this is a doubleheader Sunday here on CBS Sports. Coming up following this game, many of you will see the New York Giants against the Philadelphia Eagles, while others will see the Green Bay Packers taking on the Seattle Seahawks.
Forward to that Philly game. Buddy Ryan, my old coach, he coached up here, as a matter of fact, with the Vikings for about 10 years. He's leading that Philadelphia group, and they're doing great things out there. Randall Cunningham developing into one of the finer quarterbacks in the NFL.
And
bringing that position to a new level of play. So what Wade Wilson did in the first half, running around, breaking out, rushing downfield, scrambling. Those are the kinds of things that the quarterbacks today have to be able to do.
And Ray Perkins running out of options as he has no timeouts remaining. You see the time remaining, 1:29 in the contest. So Tampa Bay in a tough situation. It's 3rd and 1 for the Vikings, and they've converted 7 of 15 third down conversions. And if they don't make it, they're still in good field goal range. The handoff to Finney. Finney's got it, plus some. Rick Finney, the rookie out of Washington, 22 years of age, certainly has showed very well today.
Now, the flip side, James, of what's happened to the Buccaneers in the last couple of weeks, Minnesota's an experienced team. Going into the 4th quarter, they had the lead. They know how to shut the door on the other team. The Buccaneers should take some notes from this, understand how the Vikings went about doing it, put it in their playbook, and just commit it to memory and say, hey, the next time we're hitting that 4th quarter, we're going to know how to shut the door as well.
9 rushes for 40 yards for Rick Finney. 1st and 10, ball on the 16, less than a minute remaining as Kramer goes down on one knee. And interestingly, Danny, the secondary of Minnesota was considered to be an Achilles heel for this team, and they certainly played extremely well today. Browner, Harris, and Carl Lee. And if, in fact, the lead holds true today, Minnesota will come out with the victory. They'll move to 5-4. Tampa Bay will drop to 4-5. And it certainly puts Minnesota in good position as they chase after a wild card playoff spot.
And may put a smile on Jerry Burns' face for a long, something that's been missing for a while.
And that'll do it from the Metrodome in Minneapolis, Minnesota, as Jerry Burns walks away a pleased man as Ray Perkins, with his young Tampa Bay Bucks, go down to defeat to the Minnesota Vikings. For Dan Jigges, this is James Brown saying so long from the Metrodome in Minneapolis, where once again the final score was Minnesota 23, Tampa Bay 17. CBS Sports coverage of the NFL will continue after these messages from your local station.